Why do we keep this here? This is not a thing that he should be holding on to.
It's like a safety thing.
I'll put it up here. This will be good. I'm sure that's fine.
You put the safety on?
Safety.
The safety.
Hey guys, welcome back to Badonkagonk. We are back here with Wave Squadron to talk about all things Star Wars.
Got a jam-packed show for you today.
Yes.
Jam-packed.
Oh man. The book this week was this month. this month.
It feels like this week for me.
Sure, yeah. It was so good. So I'm excited to talk about that.
Yes, absolutely. We got some other things we're going to be talking about, including talking a bit about Return of the Jedi, because today that we're recording this, and if you're watching live, this is the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi.
Sorry, I don't know if it's visible at all. I was trying to show my jacket.
It's a great jacket.
I got a celebration for the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Which is today.
It's today.
That's why we planned it.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Works out.
Well, before we get started, I mean, a little bit of a somber note. We had some devastating news today with the loss of Ray Stevenson, who is an actor that I think we all kind of collectively, like, there's a very small list of actors that, Clancy Brown, like they show up and you just immediately get excited just by their mere presence. And Ray, I feel like, Clancy and some of those other people, like, well, even before Blind Wave, they were in my.
I've known them for a long time, but Ray was newer.
Ray was definitely a character actor that, as Blind Wave went on, my love got more and more and more, So it was a devastating thing to read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
this week.
I mean, all the roles I've seen him in, he's always been so good.
Mm-hmm.
I've been very excited since he was announced to be in the Ahsoka series, which we still have that coming. I don't know if this will change any plans for that character or not, or what his route in that show is going to be. But it's going to be sad, but also just great to see him perform that role now. You know?
No, there's been few roles where that you're going to be seeing an actor that is no longer with us, like Carrie Fisher, Heath Ledger as the Joker, where it just kind of it adds something. But all to his friends and family and his fans all over the world. Yeah, it was devastating news, and our hearts go out to him. Our thoughts to the family.
We just saw him. It's crazy,
Yeah, if you didn't know, we just put up our Star Wars Celebration Europe vlog, and our editor delivered that the day it happened. We had no idea, and I was reviewing it, and I just saw man, we mentioned him so much,
Sure.
And we were so excited when he came out.
There was a moment when he showed up on stage, and we stood up during our Q&A segment and stuff. We brought him up and talked about him from Black Sails.
I know in the Q&A section, I was like, if you haven't, you have to go before Ahsoka comes out. Go and understand why we're so excited, and. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people are going to understand why it's exciting to see him, but it's because it's going to be one of his final roles.
Yeah.
So, devastating news.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely is.
So anyway, so we're going to turn ourselves over now to Return of the Jedi.
Yes.
40 years in the public consciousness. It's interesting. Return of the Jedi, at least for me, it was always just that's how the movie is. That's what Star Wars is, especially the original trilogy. I didn't have the experience I had in the prequels where what people were arguing what Star Wars should be, and I was always like, no, that's what Star Wars is the original trilogy. And then the prequels happen, the sequels happen, and suddenly you start finding yourself thinking about what could have been, or what production things change, or what people are commenting on and stuff like that. And that's that type of discourse. I feel like, well, yeah, as adult fans, that's what we do. But I still have the magic of looking at that like a child, and that just is.
Oh, yeah. No, one of my favorite things is watching through Star Wars with my family and stuff, too, because I feel like it's the most childlike I am, even though we're pretty childish other times anyway.
Absolutely.
But, it's that childlike wonder, and I'm kind of re-experiencing it with them watching through and stuff too, hoping that they latch on to certain characters or people that they enjoy or villains that they like to see show up and stuff, and there's good villains, good bad guys, and all that stuff too. But no, it's a weird thing now where the one movie that you cannot argue at all about what is Star Wars is the first Star Wars, because that's what the first one was.
Yeah.
And then everything after that, I feel like it's always been what is Star Wars? Is this Star Wars? This has little teddy bears in it. That's not Star Wars. It is. It's my favorite one of the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Is Return of the Jedi.
It's certainly, for me, I think it's the most rewatchable for me. I can just put it on.
Sure.
Just go. But yeah. So talking about Return of the Jedi, we have two main segments that we're going to go through. I got some trivia that I want to get into. Some stuff that I've collected over my course of training for the Schmodown / some stuff that I've had known, and then even some things that I didn't know.
Sure.
That I'm really interested to talk about.
We shared one thing recently on another Badonkagonk about Chewie, where we showed a video about Chewbacca getting injured.
Oh yeah. I think that might have been on the main Blindwood podcast.
Might have been.
Yeah, that was before we started
Maybe.
Badonkagonk.
Okay.
I think, but yeah, that was always, and I didn't discover that until I actually got the action figure. I'm like, why does he have a cast or something? But oh no, this is an action figure that was casted from a deleted scene where you actually see that injury after it happens. But if you pay attention very briefly, you can see that Chewie suffers a very mortal wound in that scene. And I went almost 40 years not noticing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I like seeing that type of thing. But before we get into some of the trivia, I think that maybe we should talk about some of the stuff that you were working on.
Well, what I was looking through was regarding quotes from the movie.
Quotes, okay.
Some of my favorite quotes and stuff, too. I also asked Calvin and stuff about a few things, too, because he was walking by. I'm like, Calvin, when you think of Return of the Jedi, what's your quote did you come to?
Yeah, what floats to the surface?
What's the first thing, you know? So I was going through a few of those. My first one with that was, I don't know why. It's not anything necessarily pertaining to the story. It's Dewonawonga.
Dewonawonga.
It was like the first thing that came to mind. I was like, it's such a fun quote. And I'm like, what's it mean?
A fun quote.
I forget, but I love saying it.
Yeah.
Like the Huttese in this movie is just, it's fun and it's different. And it's fun to pretend to be Jabba, Dewonawonga, and they did the Family Guy thing when they're like, Wookie nipple pinchy, and they do those kind of things. But they say it in that weird Huttese sound, and it's just fun. And I always remembering like Bib Fortuna. And stuff, being like, come on, like give me the information.
It's why I have a small disconnect when I see Bib Fortuna as portrayed by Matthew Wood in like Book of Boba Fett, or I should say at the end of Mandalorian season 2.
Yeah.
Where he's like, oh, you're Boba, I'm a clunky, And I'm like, hey, man, you got to say Dewonawonga and then do those
and then
lines.
go from there, right?
Dewonawonga, or the clunky. Yeah, I think I agree with you. If I'm going to rate that like 1 to 5 on like what do I think of first, Dewonawonga is a pretty good one. I'm going to give that a 4.
I had a few of these here where it's like these are ones that I just think of that I like, and there's other ones that I feel like these are just important quotes.
Yeah.
That just work well with like either the story or the characters.
Yeah.
One is just look.
I also think of Cha.
I guess.
No Jabba, no bother.
Yeah, I suppose so.
He's so iconic.
It's just the Huttese sounds, the language.
And I've always loved the choice of like the Twi'leks. When you see the Twi'lek women, you're always like, hey, good looking girl. You see the Twi'lek guy, you're like, oh goodness, he's rough.
Yeah. So, but as far as like ones that are like very important character-wise and stuff too, I think is the Emperor is not as forgiving as I am.
The Emperor is not as forgiving as I am. Yeah, that just sets the stage.
Yeah, right? It's like, well, here's Vader. Wait, when has he been forgiving?
Yeah, right.
It's like, he's forgiving? What's the Emperor going to be like?
I know.
And it just sets a higher bar, I think, of what to expect from the Emperor and how, like, ruthless he could be.
Yeah, it's the classic power scaling thing. You spend so much time putting Darth Vader up here that when kids walk into that theater and are like, well, the Emperor, who's the Emperor? I like Darth Vader. Darth Vader's like, he's scary to me.
Yeah,
and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Who boogies the boogeyman? Okay.
This guy.
Yeah. No, that's a good one. I like that one too.
For another one of the fun ones, I had a tie between It's a Trap.
It's a Trap.
Which is one that everyone always thinks of, right?
It is. And it's
parodied so much.
It's parodied. One, it's said by Leia in Empire Strikes Back. It's a trap, So everybody always says it's a trap. They think of Akbar, but they don't think of Leia. But two, that was not the original line. And audiences that screened the movie laughed at the original line. They said, that's ridiculous. When he goes, it's a trick!
They laughed at it?
They laughed at it. And George was like, why are they laughing? I don't know. I guess for some reason, it doesn't work. And he's sitting there like, it's a trap. Say it. It's a trap! Perfect.
Great. Well, there you go. Now we're mixing trivia in too.
A little bit,
so
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now I never heard the "It's a Trick" version.
Yeah,
but I mean, how many versions of the original trilogy are there now?
I mean, there are so many more than we'll never see.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, in fact, there was an entire cut done by a completely different editor that Lucas is like, this doesn't feel like Star Wars, and they had someone else do.
For which movie? Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi. Yeah. Or Revenge of the Jedi, if you want to go that way.
Back in the original name. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you know that? with Revenge of the Jedi, around that time, Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan was coming out, and it was originally called Revenge of Khan, but they were like, we can't have it be the same name.
Can't name it Revenge.
So they changed it. And all right, we'll change it to this worse title. And then Lucas changed it.
He's like, you know what? Revenge isn't the Jedi way. We need Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. I love that Star Trek. I was like, dang it, we can't do that. And then like, well, we could have.
That's funny.
Yeah. That's a good one too. I like that.
Star Trek.
Right.
The other one I had it tied with is one that I don't know if you hear it as much anymore, but Yub Nub.
Yub Nub.
Because I know the song
Yub
was
Nub's
taken
classic.
out, right?
Yeah.
And
I have
was
fond
like,
feelings for Yub Nub. I prefer the special edition ending. Myself and the new song that John Williams had put in, but Yub Nub is special. And for people that, like I said, I think it's important to try to mainly look at these movies by what they can do for kids. Like kids that saw that is theirs, and they're going to deny anything that's different, right? Kind of like what our generation does for the new stuff.
Sure.
So it rhymes. We have that generational look at something like you would a kid, look at something like you would an adult, and sometimes you want to try to err more towards the childlike nature
side
of it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
even though they're eating stormtroopers, but
well, I mean, they're Nazis. It's okay.
I suppose.
I think that's okay. I
think
I put that in the Geneva Convention.
Okay, if you look at it that way, I guess it's okay.
Yep. Yub Nub.
Back to another one that's just a good quote from the movie.
Okay.
Was "I'm a Jedi like my father before me."
Yeah.
Like it's just
I am a Jedi like my father before me, and that's after he just was like, sister, and he's like, what? And he's like, I'm gonna kill his mom.
Yeah.
No. And he
No.
has to hold himself off, and that, like I think a lot of people when they look at that and they look at Luke as an ideal, they think of like, I'm a Jedi, I will not fight.
Yeah.
But he had to get there.
Sure. Yeah.
You
Right.
know?
He was choking some Gamorreans before that.
Yeah, he's 22.
Yeah.
Like how wise are you at 22?
Sure.
But he had to find that. So I agree. That's a good one.
People talk about Cal Kestis and all these stormtroopers and stuff he's killed and everything too, but I mean, like Luke Skywalker has killed his, handful of. I mean, there's a lot more than a handful.
I would say Death Star full.
Yeah, he has a lot of people he's killed, but even like closer, like Jabba's sail barge, like all those people he's just cutting down, throwing into Sarlacc pits and stuff. Like they're not living.
No, he's
you
not.
know.
Yeah.
So,
no, and the idea of like the Force and Jedi are never meant to attack. They're never meant to go that far. But I remember in the old novelization that scene was slightly amended, where it was like, unless you're outnumbered. If you're outnumbered, yeah, do some attacking.
Sure, yeah.
And I would say Luke was outnumbered.
when you have
during
to
the Death
defend
Star
yourself and that kind of stuff too, when
Yeah.
Death Star's going to destroy a bunch of planets and stuff, like
Well,
that's not
because
good.
it's so interesting in that movie. Luke is like, I always try to place myself like what it would have been like to be in the theater, knowing nothing. Luke walks in all black, choking pigs, and I'm like, oh my god, what's wrong?
Yeah.
I wish I kind of had that
Mechanical
feeling.
hand.
Yeah, I can never remember
the
my
first time.
first time watching, so I always knew it's like, well, yeah, I mean, Luke, it's a little darker path, but he'll find the light, and then he can reveal that light side out of his outfit, right?
Mm-hmm.
The idea of that flap comes down, and actually inside he is a Jedi. He is on the light, but yeah, I think about that.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's really good. And I think there's a lot of Jedi, too, that I think their Jedi-isms get better when they've had a closer spill over to the dark side, right?
Yeah.
Like, you kind of have that with...
You can't appreciate the light without the dark.
Sure, yeah. I mean, Seer went through that we had, right? Where we talked about that last time, right? Where she had touched the dark side and, like, she cut herself off from it because she was so scared. But then, in Battlescar...
Yeah.
She's kind of like reconnecting herself to it and wanting to go even harder into the Jedi way with it too.
Sure.
And I think there's other examples too of Jedi that have done that kind of stuff. Luke Skywalker maybe could be one of those.
Oh, absolutely. The dark side doesn't manifest just in obvious evil. I think that the trickiest part about it is that you could think that you're doing absolute good, or that you're really trying to help people, and you can still hit it. Right?
Sure.
Like Anakin doesn't want to be evil. He's still the 9-year-old slave boy that wants to help each other. There's the only thing wrong with this galaxy, no one helped each other. But whenever he found that he wanted to help others, or at least the ones that he really cared for, he was told, "No, you can't do that. You can't care about people in that way." And Luke touches the dark side because, I mean, at least that's the kind of way I think about it in the sequel trilogy, when given the vision that this kid, his nephew, is going to do terrible things, just like his dad did. And I think a lot of people are like, hey, my Luke Skywalker would never hesitate to not think about what I could do about it. But in my opinion, my Luke Skywalker did. You know, when faced with the danger posed to Leia that she could be corrupted by Vader, he was going to kill him. Like all of those blows aren't just like, I'm going to get you over here so I can chop your hand off. All those blows are, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah,
and
there's definitely an anger and a dark side within him there that has been unleashed a time or two, right? So,
and if you want to talk about growth, I mean, Luke feels that feeling, but he doesn't do it. But the dark side is such that once you start down its path, forever it dominates your destiny. He hesitates one moment by thinking like, yeah, okay, I could redeem Darth Vader after all the terrible things that he did, but what if I could put a stop to all the terrible things that he did? And that's what he's faced with.
What if I could prevent it from happening?
That's what he's faced with what happens to Kylo Ren. It's a very, very, very different decision, but it kind of rhymes in a way.
Yeah. It's like, what if Darth Maul would have ran him over in the desert?
Right?
You know?
Yeah.
What kind of world would we be in separate
Isn't
from
that crazy? Maul had no idea who that kid was.
No, he would just charge at him. He's like, there's a kid, you know?
He's that Jedi. Oh, kid. You know?
Like he was going to run that random kid over. He didn't know who he was. He was looking for Padme and Jedi.
Yeah, he was.
He's like, why are you running this kid over? I don't know.
Oh, man.
He is. All right. Well, to pair with that, too, I also had on here, tell your sister you were right.
Yeah.
Which I think pairs well with the idea of, like, I'm a Jedi, like my father before me. Like, he was like, there's still good in him, right? Like, that was the big thing of why he wanted
There
it.
is. And he wants his daughter to know. Like, he wants Luke to know. Like, tell your sister you're right, but you were right is also directed at Luke.
Yeah.
You were right.
You were right.
I just told you were wrong. There's no hope for me, son. Almost implying, like, there might still be some for you. You know, I always see that scene at the walkway, like Vader kind of being like, could I? No. Because no one cares about me. You know, Palpatine uses me.
Yeah.
But no one really cares about me. I mean, Luke's saying he is, but he doesn't know me. I know me.
Yeah.
But even in the moment of, like, certain death, Luke's like, no, I do care. And I think that's what puts Vader over the edge, being like, there actually is something I can do. I'm going to throw this dude down a hole.
No.
Yeah. You know, we never really get that payoff either. Like, tell your sister you were right, but we don't see that. And I don't I know the Legends continuity. I'm not really sure about canon now, but Legends continuity, Leia really struggled with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the idea that he was still good inside.
Yeah. Like there was even older stories about like it could be implied that Anakin Skywalker's trying to reach out to her, but she doesn't want to. So, but again, old Legends continuities.
In theory, he would be able to as a Force ghost if he was able to reach that point, which it shows him there in Return of the Jedi.
It does.
It's just interesting because he's one who didn't have a connection as much to Qui-Gon, which is kind of the connection that allowed everyone else to be Force ghosts. So it could just be how strong he is with the Force as a whole.
There's been a couple different answers for that, you know, which is one of the things that when people like get really stringent about like canon and this is the way it is, I don't care about, you know, what other people think, but I mean, the explanation of why Anakin can do that has changed a little bit throughout the years. At first, I think Lucas said that Obi-Wan and Yoda like guided and taught him in the moment of his death to be able to do it. And I think there might still be some truth to that.
Sure. They're standing there with him.
But there's also the idea that, you know, because Anakin is the chosen one, it's something it's an advantage that he has over others when it comes to his connections with the Force. And there's no right answer.
No, there's not. But like
there shouldn't be.
In his like Jesus birth type of thing, right? Where it's like there was no father, you know, like well, what made him? It's like the Force made him. So like he just has a stronger connection to it maybe than some others do. So he kind of naturally falls into that in some way. Yeah. Especially since by the time he dies, it's more on the light side than on the dark side.
Yeah,
you know.
No, there was you know some of the alternate stuff that Lucas came up with for Return of the Jedi. The way that it ended up is very different. Like Obi-Wan was going to come back to life. Yoda was going to come back to life at the end of that movie. And I think it was even implied that Anakin might have come back to life in those scenes too. I don't know exactly where that information is sourced. You know, there's always, this is why I love George Lucas. Sometimes you can try to go find an answer that he's given throughout the years, and then you can find a complete different answer to the same question throughout the years as well. And there's a little part of me that kind of respects that, even he recognizes that this thing is a living mythology and stuff can change, and ultimately it's not about what it is, it's about how did you experience it, what did it make you feel.
I mean, in the original time, like we get original trilogy, we have Return of the Jedi, At the end of that, you see 3 Jedi who are Force ghosts.
Yeah.
Like, as far as what we know, implication of that could just be
That's what
Jedi
do.
turn into Force ghosts. That's just what they do, you know? It's not until we get into the prequels and stuff that we start seeing less Force ghosts. And then in the Clone Wars, where we start seeing, like, oh, Qui-Gon had a bigger connection to the living Force, and then he taught Yoda how to do this kind of thing. And
that's why I'm not very sanctimonious when it comes to the canon. Like, I'm open to things changing or you know,
being reinformed,
things being
in a way.
reinterpreted, or even just like reflected in a new artist coming in and putting their stamp or their thoughts into stuff. I've become extremely more open to that the older I get.
Yeah.
Before I was not.
Yeah.
I was.
No, this is the canon.
It was the canon. Yeah. Exactly.
I noticed like the next few I have are actually a little bit more sillier in a way. I
like silly.
I like Fly Casual.
I don't know. Fly Casual.
I don't know. It's just one that stands out, and I can think about it real easily. But I like that one a lot.
Isn't it crazy to think that you never see Han Solo in the Millennium Falcon cockpit in that movie?
Yeah, not in that one.
I always like those little details where it's like, he never shows up in that one.
Nope. Speaking of the guy who flies it, another one I had was a little higher. Just a little higher.
Yeah, that's certainly one that rises to the top for me for Return of the Jedi.
I just love the moment, too, where he's like, wait, I thought you were blind. I can see a lot better
I
now.
was getting a lot better.
You know, like,
Poor Lando.
Yeah. You know,
the last time he saw this guy, that's the guy that betrayed me, and he's pointing a gun at you. Oh, no, I'm here to help.
Yeah, right? So it's definitely like you go from that to that, and it's like, please don't shoot me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then last one I really have, I have an honorable mention one. It's not really a serious one. I just thought of it mainly because Rick was around at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But this one was against my programming to impersonate a deity.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a fun moment in Return of the
Protocol.
Jedi. Yeah, where they get caught in a net because Chewie's thinking with his stomach, right? And all these little Ewoks just show up, and then they look at this golden person as a god. And I don't know. It's just a funny moment to like. Here's this tribal group.
It's interesting to think of the story implications of what that line gives too, because especially an uncontacted tribe like the Ewoks. I mean, I don't know how much contact they've had with like the greater galaxy, but if you were to interact with someone that has almost infinite knowledge, like 3PO has so much knowledge. He doesn't necessarily have much wisdom, but in terms of like facts, like being able to speak 6 million forms of communication is like godlike. You know, I mean, to speak in tongues is to be able to speak where everyone can understand you. Like, that's a miracle. So yeah, I imagine the people that put the protocols in place would be like, also, if we were to just lose one of these guys on an untapped world, we don't want them to become gods.
Like, what other reason is there for that? Because it's a weird thing to be like, let's make sure there's what happened, right? You always see like flotation devices where it's like not meant to be a saving device or whatever, right?
Yes.
Like,
do not put in mouth.
Who did this that they had to put this warning on? So like, what occurred where they were like, you know what? Let's make sure there's a protocol where robots or droids can't be deities.
Yeah. That would be a fun side story to have, like a story of a droid that was marooned on a planet, and because it's a droid, it can theoretically live for a very, very long time.
Sure, yeah.
And it's literally seen as a god, but it keeps trying to say, "I'm not." It's like, our God is so humble.
Yeah, right. Praise the God.
Oh man.
Yeah, and then the last one I had, like I said, was more of an honorable mention, but it was "We So Free."
Yeah, that's a good one.
I just thought of it, like I said, mainly because Rick was here at the time, but I was like, you know what? That also kind of symbolizes, like, it's the ending of everything with Return of the Jedi. They destroyed the Empire. Yeah. Like, it's like, what is this? What does this movie represent? It represents the rebellion finally winning and beating the Empire and stuff.
It does.
It all culminates with a Gungan We So Free.
I think it's important to show it be a Gungan, too, because Gungans... I always liked this tone poem commercial that came out around episode 1. It was Peter Serafinowicz doing way more lines than he ever did in the movie, but he has this like fear attracts the fearful, and it's like the powerful, the corrupt, the innocent. And when he says innocent, it shows Jar Jar. Like Jar Jar and the Gungans, like they really are the innocent. I mean, yeah, they're warriors and they'll do what they can to defend themselves, but they have no ambition other than just let us live in our lake.
Yeah, we just want to live in this water.
Just let us live here.
We're not trying to take over the galaxy. Yeah. We're not trying to take over Theed. You know, like we don't even care about that.
Yeah, so freedom for the Gungans is freedom for all, and I'm glad that they get voiced.
Yeah.
there.
Well, like how bad was their life on Naboo in that water?
Yeah.
That they were like, we set free, and they're partying, you know?
Yeah,
like,
exactly, right.
What did the Empire do to them?
Yeah.
I know at one point in the, actually, I guess this would have been after this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where there was Operation Cinder.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that would have been after this. Could you imagine me like, we set free? And then all of a sudden, like, oh, lightning coming from the sky. So, but that's all of the general quotes that I had.
Okay, cool.
From
some good
Return
quotes.
of the Jedi,
Yeah.
just to kind of look back and think about some moments and stuff. Like I said, some of them are a little bit more story heavy. Some of them are just ones where I'm like, I just love this moment, or I just think about this moment, or it was a funny moment that stood out to me.
I mean, the one you have, like, I am a Jedi like my father before me, like, that's such a powerful one to think about that it's something that pops up more, right?
Sure.
Like, I'm just a simple man making my way through the galaxy, like my father before me, you know? And you keep that going because the idea of legacy and father to son or, you know, parent to child, what you pass on next. And it's strange that Luke, who should, for all intents and purposes, see his father as a force of evil and a force of negative and someone that will fight and destroy, and he's even almost saying it to Vader, like my father before me, I will not fight. I will throw away my weapon. That's what I see when I think of you, and that's what you can be. It's a very powerful moment. So that's probably my favorite of the ones that you got.
I didn't even have anything with the Emperor. There's so many good ones with him, I feel like, too. Like, I just like when he's talking about, like, you want this, don't you? Yeah, I don't know. There's some good stuff with him, too.
Yeah. Now, I like all those scenes that are added to Return of the Jedi in a special edition, but yeah, that Gungan's like on top of like a building. We so free. Yeah, it's great. They're
knocking over the statue there on Coruscant or whatever it was. Yeah. And no, I like that little segment. I love that segment. I really like Yub Nub. But I don't know, the music's still like do do do.
I have room for both in my heart.
I know. I just can't find Yub Nub hardly anywhere. I want them to put it somewhere.
Yeah.
Do a Visions and have it be a Yub Nub video or something, you know? Yub Nub. I love it.
Yeah, it's great. All right. Well, that was some really good ones there. I'm trying to think if there's any that you didn't have. Duel Wonga's real good too. In terms of like what rises to the surface when I think of Return of the Jedi, but yeah, I think you covered it pretty well. All right, well, I have a list here that I wanted to go over of just some fun trivia about the movie, and I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it because some of these are fun. You might have heard some of these, maybe you haven't heard some of them, but just let me know what you think about these. This was fun. I think that Ian McDermott might have spoken about this at Celebration, but the Emperor's chair was mechanized so that it could rotate when the scene called for it, right? Like someone off camera was going to press the button and hit their marks. However, the mechanism never worked, so Ian McDermott had to make it move by shuffling his feet under his robe, and he had to hit like certain spots. It's just funny to think about like how important that scene is and how powerful that character comes across, but
to picture his feet like underneath.
I like to think that when Luke shows up and Vader shows up and the Emperor's like, he's like, all right. And he's like, oh, fuck, my chair's not working. He's like trying to subtly do it so he doesn't like look dumb in front of Luke,
Yeah. It's a funny idea because like this big villain, crazy bad guy, and he's like.
Here's another one about Ian McDermott. According to Ian McDermott, George Lucas originally cast him simply as the physical performance of the Emperor. And we've seen Lucas do this over and over again with Darth Vader, Darth Maul. He would, he has what the look is and then he has what the sound is. And Empire Strikes Back had already established what the Emperor sounded like. Gonna have to be done. He would be a powerful ally. Clav Ravel was originally that voice. And it says here... this became evident to him when the producer told him that if he was able to get his voice close enough to Clive Revell, who betrayed him in Empire Strikes Back, Lucas would let him use the on-camera vocals in the final movie. However, McDermott felt that he could conduct a stronger, more wicked and demonic voice for the Emperor as opposed to Revell's more aristocratic Emperor. Lucas and even Steven Spielberg were so impressed that it ended up becoming the signature trait of the character. Yeah.
Your faith in your friends is yours.
I know.
Like
imagine that happening today. Like you put out a new TV show and you take a character that appeared in a movie and you just have them sound completely different. Like people will be like, "What's happening?" But then you don't get like that iconic voice.
Sure.
Ian McDiarmid has talked about before how like trying to find that voice. He is a big fan of like Japanese cinema and Japanese voices, especially male voices. They really like they start in your gut, you know, like they get down here. So then he would, you know, he naturally his speaking voice is quite up here and aristocratic, and that's where his Palpatine voice. But then the Emperor descends down to your stomach. It's down here and it comes out. It's very, very cool. But I like that Japanese mannerisms and culture. It's like they're so steeped in Star Wars, even subtly like that. It's really cool.
Yeah, things from samurai to just talking and stuff too. No, that's great.
During the shot in which Salacious Crumb is chewing on 3PO's eye, Anthony Daniels had a panic attack while in this 3PO suit. While filming, he didn't actually say his lines. All of his lines were dubbed.
Okay. I mean, that's easy enough for him.
He kept repeating, "Get me up, get me up, get me up." Over and over. This is the take that's used in the final cut. So
he's having a panic
we
attack.
We don't get to hear it, but we see that. You know, I guess Lucas is just kind of like, yeah, well, don't waste it. You know, film is forever. Fate is temporary. I'm going to use that one.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know he had a panic attack. That's
he had a panic attack, and I can easily see that. Just, you know, being so claustrophobic, and then this thing's like attacking you and stuff. You know.
Well, yeah, he's already been trapped in this suit.
Exactly.
You know? Like he's just stuck in there.
Yeah. And he's such a skinny guy. Like, I can't imagine a protocol suit for me, you know?
Yeah,
like,
right.
But even him, like, it's even smaller on him. Ugh, I can't imagine it.
Yeah. And you're laying down. I don't know how hard it is to stand up, right? Like, you can't just get up. Like, it would be so hard to stand up in there.
It would, yeah.
His legs don't really bend that well.
No. No, there's so many shots of him just kind of, like, crumpling to his knees and falling.
Yeah.
Poor guy. Okay, this is a fun one. Originally, Yoda was not in the script. Yoda was added when George Lucas determined him best to confirm to Luke as to whether Darth Vader was his father or not. This also kind of goes in with the idea that when Empire Strikes came out and that revelation was made, there was a vast majority of people that did not believe
he's lying,
Vader.
Right?
James Earl Jones did not believe that Vader was his father. No, he's lying. He's lying. So I think it's important that Lucas, who I know that he like consulted like a child psychologist about like, no, people, they will not believe it. You have to tell them. So, all right, well, who do I get to say it where people will believe it? Yoda. Yoda doesn't lie.
Yeah.
I mean, at least right now.
I mean,
he can be a little ornery sometimes.
You go into that whole point of view thing.
Yeah, sure, right?
that was another one of the quotes I thought about. I'm like, I don't know. Obi-Wan's just screwing with people.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, what I told you was true.
From a certain point of view. Yeah.
Damn it.
But yeah, I like that Yoda was selected, and he wasn't even going to appear in the movie at all.
I'm glad that they put him in there, because him having his death scene and stuff, too, is like a sad moment, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess another, you know, in Empire Strikes Back, when Luke takes off for Bespin, and they're looking up, and he's like, no, there is another. Originally, that was a completely new character that Lucas was thinking of, but he wanted to end Star Wars with 3. It was going to be a little longer, but he wanted to end with 3, so he kind of just wrapped that up. It's like, all right, tell him there is another Skywalker. And then the audience is like, oh, yeah, there was a line like that. Who's that going to be? Leia. You know?
Leia, is it?
Yeah.
Sister.
I have a
Didn't
trivia
know.
about that later, too. Ian McDiarmid. No, I already said this one. How about this? So we got 2 Death Stars in the original trilogy.
Yes.
What's the difference between those two?
One's bigger.
How much bigger?
8 times.
Nope.
I forget.
I don't know the math, but the second Death Star is 460% larger than the first one.
460% larger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You could fit the first one in there then.
You could.
And
I think
more.
that's a big Death Star. A lot of these...
Is that why the exhaust port you can fly into this time?
Probably, yeah. Right? 2 meters versus... Well, it just wasn't finished, but I get you. Thank God there was like enough room to get in there. So yeah, a lot of
satellite.
A decent amount of these, like I had that number memorized for Schmodown. I forgot all about it, but I was going through some of my stuff, being like, oh, that's an interesting one.
I wonder why you said 406%.
Yeah.
Wonder why 6? Why not just stop at 4?
Oh, 460. Did I say 460?
Oh, 60?
460%.
Why go to 60? I wonder. Why not 450? I wonder why they went to 460.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Why not 420?
I don't know. I don't know, Eric.
So you fall on the side of you like Ewoks.
Yeah, I like Ewoks.
When did you learn the name Ewok?
Hmm.
Did you just always know it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know when I would have known it. I just feel like I've always known it.
Yeah. You know how many times it's said in the movie?
None.
Not once.
They never call them Ewoks.
Not once, but everybody
but I knew
knows
they
it.
were Ewoks.
Everyone does. Wicket, when's his name said?
I don't know if any of their names are said.
None of them are said.
I don't think there's one name.
Nope.
I think the only times you give names is I don't even know if credits have names for them.
Yeah.
Did the credits have names for them?
Maybe. Certainly the special edition does.
Well, yeah, special edition.
I'm not really sure about originally. But yeah, the word Ewok, never used. Everybody knows it. It's one of the things that I always pull out when people are like, well, what? I have to go to a source book to find something? That's dumb. It's like, oh, yeah, you know about Ewoks? Like, yeah, I know Ewoks. Like, how you know that?
Action figures. You know, like that's what it is.
Yeah.
How many action figures named characters that weren't named?
Sure, right? I mean, hell, Crix Medine in Return of the Jedi, his action figure was made while they were still casting, and the guy showed up, and they had the action figure, and they're like, oh, man, the action figure has a beard. Let's go get a fake beard, put it on you, you know? So that's an action figure.
We got to match him to the action figure.
Let's see here. Okay, this is an interesting one. When preparing to work on the special edition, one of the Industrial Light and Magic employees was talking to a friend and mentioned in passing that they were extending the musical number in Jabba's palace.
Yes!
Da, 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 da. Yeah. The friend happened to be the brother of Femi Taylor, the dancer that played Ula.
Oh.
Okay? So Ula being the Green Twi'lek that we see in
Dropped
the
into the
original
Rancor.
movie. And then in 1997, much later, they're going to extend that sequence. This friend of Femi Taylor suggested that get in contact with her, as she was in even better shape than she was when they originally shot the scene. They ended up using her, and the scene is a combination of footage they already had and the new footage recorded 15 years later. Femi Taylor also has the distinction of being the only cast member from the original movies to reprise her role in the special edition.
So they used more footage of her for the
Yeah.
music scene
Yeah.
from her 15 years
But
later.
they intercut it with stuff from 15 years ago. And were you there? Like, because I was at the autograph hall during Celebration, and I saw Femi Taylor. The woman doesn't age. She looks exactly the same.
Really?
And it's 40 years later. I don't know what that magic is, but I want some.
Want some magic.
Yeah, right?
That's cool. I didn't know about that.
Yeah. This is an interesting one. Another reason for filming under the guise of the nondescript horror movie title. Do you know what the fake title was for Return of the Jedi? I'm sure you've heard it before. Family Guy uses
What
it.
was it? Blue Harvest?
Blue Harvest. It was partially to put off snoopers, and also because the production found out that if they mentioned they were working on the next Star Wars movie, suppliers would automatically ramp up their prices, assuming that the money was no object for Lucasfilm. And it was. Empire Strikes Back went so over budget that Lucas fired its producer for the next movie and became executive producer, you know, to be able to fill in a lot of that stuff to try to keep it under budget. One of the reasons that Richard Marquand was hired, one, he's non-union, so
Sure.
Lucas could stay independent. But
it helped with the credit thing, right?
It
Because they
helped.
wanted him to do the credits in the beginning. He said, no, I don't want that.
yeah, absolutely. But also, like, if you say that you're working on the next Star Wars movie, like a location, you know, if we were to go get a location scout for a place down the street, they might be like, oh, okay, yeah, give us $100 and you can use the location.
Sure.
But if Lucasfilm came in, they'll be like, oh, yeah, $10,000 please, you know,
Sure, yeah.
or way
If
more.
George Lucas walked into a place being like, I'm
Exactly.
looking for a place for this.
Yeah, so I've always liked the Blue Harvest horror beyond imagination story, but I never really knew it was also about just trying to
Help the budget.
help the budget out, you know, like you still have to come under budget with these movies. I know that we like to think that, you know, Lucasfilm and Disney and all that stuff, like they still have to do it, and good producers get really interesting ideas like Blue Harvest.
It's like when you see a hotel area, like prices jump up because there's like an event happening.
Yeah.
But if you go there when there's not an event, they're like half as much.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of locations, the forest that they, I think it's near Crescent City in California, the forest that they filmed indoor on.
Yeah.
Generally, especially redwoods, you cannot alter anything. You come in, you leave it exactly as you came out, right? Like in Lord of the Rings, whenever they were creating Edoras, which was the Rohirrim capital, like on top of the mountain in Rohan,
Okay.
they had to take all of the grass that they were going to get rid of so they could build on it. They took it to a greenhouse halfway across the country and cared for it for like 2 years, so that when they were all done and they struck the set, they put that grass back immediately, right? Like that's how like crazy it is to be able to go through some of these productions, and especially the redwood forests. But the redwood forest where they were filming was actually scheduled for logging, and they said, yeah, you can do whatever you want. So they were blowing shit up and making these big traps and all that stuff.
That's a great time to do that.
Yeah, it was. So they got kind of lucky with that one.
You talking about that makes me think of at Star Wars Celebration. I don't know if we talked about this or not, but we saw a clip of them doing a previs. Remember the previs that we saw?
Yeah, that was amazing.
It was a previs of the speeder bike chase.
Yeah.
And they were comparing. It was like, here's what we did in Mandalorian whenever we had to escape from Order 66 in Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Versus here's what we had to do for Return of the Jedi's like speeder chase. And you see like the digital version of this, and then you see like plastic Barbie dolls and like just stop motion-y look to it, it was so cool to see where like they're just flying through. They have like coat hangers attached to these little things, moving them through like what looks like a forest in a way, going through it, and then like their heads are like because they're just little dolls, and it was so cool to see.
It was incredibly cinematic.
Yeah, it was done so well, and I don't know because like nowadays we have such smaller cameras. Like their cameras there weren't that small. I don't feel like but they got pretty good shots of what they were trying to get.
Oh yeah, they got fantastic stuff. No, that was a really special moment of celebration to be able to see. I always like when I can. I mean, just like some of this trivia, like, oh, that's something I didn't know.
Yeah,
because I steep myself so much in Star Wars. I feel sometimes I'm like, I have nothing else to learn, but. Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, like the lead stormtrooper was like a Boba Fett action figure or something like that too. Or it could have been they thought Boba Fett would be in it. I don't know.
I was really bummed to miss Doug Chang's panel because I know he did a lot of that type of thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd been cool.
At celebrations. Maybe I can catch the next one in Japan. Okay, this is an interesting one. I like when not like, but I always think it's really interesting when production things can kind of affect plot or even just subtle stuff like this. Before filming began, it was discovered that all of Darth Vader's lightsaber props had either been lost or stolen.
Before filming began?
Before filming began. Thus, one of Luke Skywalker's stunt saber props from Episode 5 had to be quickly cannibalized into a Vader-esque saber for this movie. I've always looked at the sabers, and you can tell, oh, yeah, Vader has like a new saber here. It looks a little bit like it, but it is different. I wonder why that is. Someone took it.
He's lost or stole them all.
Yeah, and it's close enough to Anakin's lightsaber. They're like, all right, well, we'll put the black thing here and this, but
just change a few things, make it look close.
Yeah.
Huh.
No, there's some big lightsaber, especially lightsaber hilt nerds that they can tell you exactly. You know, they'll pick up a prop and be like, okay, yeah, this is Episode 4's Luke. You can tell by the 5 ridges here as opposed to 6 on the production thing. But I love the idea that someone took it and they had to be like, what do we do? It's like,
take that one, make it a thing.
Here? Yeah, Lucas is like, yep, that's it.
Good enough.
Okay, here's one I didn't know, and this is kind of a big deal for me. Ralph McQuarrie became burned out because of his constant work on the movie and his hatred of the Ewok concept and walked away from production.
Really?
I had no idea that he walked away from production on Return of the Jedi. He hated the Ewoks that much. You have to remember, the Ewoks were originally going to be Wookiees.
Sure, it was going to be a Wookiee planet.
It was going to be effectively Kashyyyk. But that didn't work out because they didn't have like enough time and material to make those outfits.
Not enough fur.
So they literally, like Lucas says this, like I just cut them in half, and I just made like 3 small Ewok costumes
out of one big one.
But you know, I mean, that's one thing. Like, you know, I know a lot of people. The Ewok thing was why they left Star Wars. And
sure.
I had no idea that Ralph McQuarrie was part of that.
It's like the making them Ewoks is like one of those limitation things where it's like, well, we can't do what we want to do. Yeah. What can we do?
Sure.
Well, we could make them smaller. Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's make them not Wookiees. Yeah. Ewoks.
This is an interesting one. Actually, I'm going to save that for a little bit. This one is kind of crazy. On what was dubbed Black Friday, 100,000 feet of film stock containing finished visual effects shots couldn't be read by the optical printer. We don't know why. Something was wrong with them, and they could not get that film stock back into the optical printer for editing. So George Lucas threw it out. The crew at Industrial Light and Magic were forced to go back to the drawing board and start again from scratch, with many getting drunk when they heard the news.
And this is it was all part of Return of the Jedi's film?
Yeah, Return of the Jedi's film. 100,000 feet of film stock containing visual effect shots.
Okay, well, at least it was just the
They had a
visual
problem with
effects stocks, I suppose.
Yeah,
But that still sucks.
It sucks.
Like, you don't have to get all the actors and stuff back necessarily.
Yeah, like just imagine like all the work you put in. And it's like, well, I can't do it. Do it again.
Yeah. But like, we don't have all the ships flying around.
Yeah.
We don't have turbo lasers. We don't have. Yeah, I don't know. It just depends on what it is.
Yeah.
I
always
suppose,
find
that's
that,
rough.
especially a movie that's 40 years old now. A lot of people look back on that type of thing with very rose-colored glasses.
Sure.
You know. And whenever you hear about production problems now, like in the Disney era and stuff like that, they think, oh, man, they're fucking it up, and they have no idea what Star Wars is really like. It was like there was always problems, and there was always people not liking something or disagreements. It's just that stuff is so much more pronounced now because everybody has a voice and everybody can voice it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I like to think that, you know, I wonder how the movie would have been different if we had that original 100,000 feet.
Yeah.
You know?
What did they had to shortchange because of it or anything?
Caroline Blasketon, who played Mon Mothma, had to re-record her dialogue after it was discovered that her microphone had picked up the sound of pigeons roosting in the set ceiling.
Pigeons.
Can you imagine if they didn't catch that and you're in there and she's many Bothans died to I love that. It's so, I don't know, humbling to think that a giant set like that still has problems with pigeons.
Yeah, it's crazy. No.
This is an interesting one, and it's also going to tie in a little bit to something that we're going to be talking about later. Screenwriter Lawrence Kasdan and executive producer George Lucas initially wanted to include the victory over the Empire shots of Imperial City, just like we got in the 97 version. However, they were unable to get a satisfactory name for the capital planet of the Empire. So it's like, I can't think of the name. Screw it.
So they just didn't do it.
In May 1991, author Timothy Zahn wrote a Star Wars spin-off book, Heir to the Empire, and came out with the capital planet's name as Coruscant. Lucas was happy with the name, and as a result, CGI shots of victory celebration sequences of other cities, including Coruscant, were included in the 1997 special edition.
Interesting.
Yeah.
See, and that's one of those things, too, where it's like actually trickling up.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's always that thing where in Marvel we talk about, like, well, maybe the shows will trickle up to the movies and stuff, and it never happens. But this is like, here's a Legends book.
Yeah.
Right? Or I guess at that point it's Extended Universe. That is creating, well, you know what? We'll put this in the movie. That's a good name. I like that name.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he kind of figured out what it looked like a little bit, right? I've never read Heir of the Empire, which will be an interesting conversation we have later on, too.
Yep.
But I would imagine he names it and kind of describes the planet a little bit, you know? So the idea of it being an all-city thing is maybe from him.
If I remember correctly, the original script it wasn't Endor at all. It was, the capital city was called Had Abaddon.
Had Abaddon. Had a bad one?
Had, H-A-D, and then Abaddon, A-B-B, I think, Abaddon. But, yeah, it's one of those things where, like, you can find some concept art, I think, by Ralph McQuarrie, where, like, the throne room is in like this like lava mountain area, and Lucas being Lucas originally would just repurpose that for Mustafar
For Vader, yeah. I love repurposing things.
Another thing that I just never really thought of, for the only time Luke Skywalker addresses Obi-Wan Kenobi as Obi-Wan rather than Ben. He only says refers to him as Obi-Wan in this movie.
I never thought about that.
Yeah.
I guess it's true. He's like, Ben.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. I mean, yeah. Just like the Ewok thing, Ian McDiarmid's character, Emperor Palpatine, is not referred to by his name in the original trilogy. He is only called the Emperor. And I remember this, too, because the novelization actually had the name Palpatine, but it was never spoken in the movie. And much like you talk about a lot whenever, you mock me when I'm like, I've only read it. A lot of older fans that know that fact call him Palpatine. And I'll even like catch some people like still saying Palpatine because in their head that's still what it is.
That's how they read it.
Yeah.
Palpatine.
Yep. This was also the first movie to mention TIE fighters by name. I think it's like get some of those TIE fighters off of us or something. Lando says it. But the other movies do not say TIE fighter. That's just something that we kind of know.
I'm trying to think in A New Hope when they're coming in. I just remember them being like, it's not over yet. I got one. Yeah. I don't remember them being like, there's another tie on us.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated with like what early drafts were. This one I think is kind of crazy. Originally, Moff Jerjerrod was written as Grand Moff Jerjerrod, and he was Emperor Palpatine's personal representative and schemed with him to turn Luke Skywalker to the dark side and betray Darth Vader. When Vader finds out, he breaks his neck. That's a big departure than what the very brief Jerjerrod we get.
They don't do that at all.
Yeah. I also learned that Alan Rickman auditioned for that role and didn't get it.
Of Jerjerrod?
Yeah.
Yep.
He didn't get it.
That
Yeah, that's crazy. Like I believe that Return of the Jedi is the only movie Vader doesn't choke anybody. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, I can think of at least
the
first two.
This cut story, he would have snapped his neck.
Well, it's this because he's more forgiving.
Yes.
Yes.
Right? Oh, man. This is a cool fact. I'm not really sure where the source is for this, but I thought it was interesting. According to Star Wars canon, Luke has been to the Sarlacc pit before. During his adolescence, it was a popular dare amongst his friends to jump the Sarlacc pit in low-flying vehicles.
Really?
You imagine these kids. You imagine being Uncle Owen, like, where's Luke? And there's over there, like, you damn kids.
Well, you have to do that in Shadows of the Empire.
You do.
Right? Like, there's that speeder bike chase with the gang.
The swoop gang.
The swoop gang, yeah. And you have to, like, escape.
And you have to thread the needle, right?
And get them there, yeah. You have to save them from getting to Luke.
The duel between Vader and Luke is one of the few times where John Williams' score and lightsaber sound effects can be heard simultaneously in the original trilogy. Generally, when you have a lightsaber fight in the original trilogy, there is no music.
No music.
But this was a deliberate choice by Lucas and John Williams to highlight the epic final battle. And then I feel like from then on, they had music in lightsaber fights.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, they come back in with Duel of the Fates, and
Duel of the Fates
you can't deny how epic that makes that fight. But imagine that fight with no music. I think it would be obviously
what
impressive.
music is on the desert when Qui-Gon and Maul fight there?
There's something.
Is there music there?
But it's just like that whole fight sequence. It's very nebulous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he's trying to highlight Duel of the Fates for later, so you get like a little sneak peek of that fight. And then we were talking about this a little bit ago, maybe this week or last week, but isn't it crazy that the prequel trilogy has a whole fight between Maul and Qui-Gon, like, on Tatooine, but no one ever puts that, like, as their, like, what lightsaber fight's your favorite?
Well, it's because you can't see anything.
You can't see anything.
There's nothing there.
But, like, those two characters duel. I want to see it.
They fight for, like, 20 seconds.
I know, but that's the thing.
Away.
Like, I would love to have seen it, but I also respect Lucas's choice where it's like, look, I'm trying to tease you. You want to be able to see it, and you can't. That's going to make the payoff when you see it way better. So I respect the decision, and if anything, it makes it one of the most successful fights maybe in the whole saga for what the director wants you to feel.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. Makes sense.
I didn't know this. EV-99 is the first female droid to appear in a Star Wars movie. Also the only droid in any of the movies to be depicted with a moving mouth, at least in the original trilogy. But I didn't really realize that EV-99 is meant to be female gendered. Huh. You'll soon learn some respect, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I know that the actress that played it that was interesting.
Till he got mad at our last protocol droid and disintegrated him.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that either. And there's not very many droids that have some kind of moving mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the next one? TC?
TC,
right? That was a female
17?
droid, right?
19?
TC, I want to say TC-14.
TC-14, TC-16, I can't remember. I don't know.
But I think that was a female droid.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Have you ever noticed the differences between stormtroopers in the first two movies and Return of the Jedi?
If I say no, will you tell me?
No.
Oh, yes. No, what are the differences of them?
During the production, 50 new stormtrooper helmets were made, rather than reusing the remaining 12 from Star Wars.
Man, they only had 12?
Yep. For that, a new mold was made from the cast of the existing suit, which had collapsed during manufacturing. This explains the very squashed appearance of the helmets. So they're accurate to those original helmets, but those original helmets got squashed. So they're a little more squishy in their helmets design, which I always noticed primarily when you play video games. When Stormtrooper like models come on screen, I'm always like, oh, they were looking at Return of the Jedi instead of the original.
Never noticed that. I've always thought like Return of the Jedi had more of the scout troopers than the other ones.
Certainly did.
And I was like, wow, they're just in a different place.
But I'm sure some of our friends from the 501st will be able to immediately tell which one is from which mold.
Sure, the differences between them.
Because of the squishiness. Shooting the scene of Darth Vader's unmasking was handled with such secrecy that Sebastian Shaw was not even told what he would be doing until he arrived on set. He was spotted by his old friend Ian McDiarmid, they had known each other, who played Palpatine. He asked Shaw what he was doing there, and Shaw answered, "I don't know. They haven't told me anything, except it has something to do with science fiction."
So they just told him he was just showing up.
Secrecy. He had no idea what he was doing. Isn't that nuts?
I mean, it's kind of like Empire Strikes Back a little bit, right?
A little bit.
Where it's like, all right, here's this line. And he's like,
Obi-Wan
no!
Yeah, sure.
And he's like, why is he reacting like that? That's a little weird.
Overactor.
Yeah, right?
I thought that was interesting. Hey, here's a little factoid that I finally realized where it came from, because I talked about this when our conversation with the normies, and I talked about how Palpatine is like over 100 years old, and that's no longer the case. The prequels have kind of changed that up, but according to Ian McDiarmid in the Blu-ray commentary, Palpatine is supposedly 100 years old. So I heard it from Ian McDiarmid before, so I'll respect my source, but it's not true anymore.
But he's not 100
He's
years
not
old.
100 years old. And then, my last one is really just about the Anakin Skywalker Force Ghost thing and how he was taught by Obi-Wan Kenobi, but that fact has kind of changed a little bit throughout the years, too.
Well, yeah, it's a weird thing to kind of have him be taught there. Except, I mean, in the last moments, I suppose, but I like the idea more so that he's very connected with the Force because of the way he was born, I suppose, It just gives him a different strength that, while others can learn it, his may come more naturally.
Yeah. All right, well, that's some trivia about Return of the Jedi.
Sure. There's some things there I didn't know.
Yeah. No, I always like to learn that stuff, if only to get the perspective that there was no era in Star Wars that there wasn't screw-ups and mess-ups and things changing and production problems, and that's the cool thing about art. Like, art will live on forever, and no one's going to remember that.
Well,
they're gonna remember the experiences it gives you.
It's never finished, it escapes kind of thing, right? Yeah. It's like that idea. Mm-hmm. But George Lucas sometimes just keeps working on it more. Yeah. Like he was like, let me do another edition, a special edition. Yeah,
it's why sometimes I try to caution Star Wars fans, especially like really hardliners that don't want anything to change or don't want to have to rethink, about stuff that they've done before, especially when it comes to the Disney era and new artists coming in. It's like, look, no one sees this stuff as more precious than me. But you can't have it be that precious. It needs to be a story that evolves and changes and lets the next generation of kids be like, oh, that's cool, that's inspiring, and move on to create their own stories and live their own lives and stuff like that. I think it's important to go back and see the mistakes.
Yeah.
So that can come out.
I don't know if you've seen any of it. I watched a few episodes of, what's it called? It's it came out on May 4th. It's the Young Jedi Adventures. Mm-hmm. And I've seen a few episodes of that, and I think it's fine for younger kids. It feels like one of those like Super Y shows or I don't know, Word Girl. The younger ones where it's like we're gonna try to teach different elements, right? There's friendship and discipline and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Too. And it's just from a Star Wars perspective and stuff. And it's not like I'm watching it where I'm like, this isn't Star Wars. It's just like this is for a much younger audience than what the initial Star Wars I think is for. But it's also very direct. Like I feel like this is more than like Resistance. Like Resistance was for like a younger audience too, I think. But this one is like we will help to maybe teach some values and things like that too, right? Like help your friends. Like your lightsaber is not more important than your friend falling off a cliff. Like those kind of situations there. It's like, well, I can get both. It's like, no, why prioritize this inanimate object over this life? Like that kind of stuff.
And it's important for kids to be able to see that stuff. I would say in the movies as well, like they, like the Clone Wars and Resistance, stuff like that. They need to immediately be able to understand if someone's good or bad, right? And that way they can try to see themselves or who they want to be in a story. And then you have stuff like Andor. That's completely the opposite, where this is for adults. This is for people that have gone through shit, looking at other people going through stuff and be like, I relate to that. Because I tell you what, a lot of kids aren't going to relate to the stuff like an Andor, but we can all relate to what it was like being a kid and not knowing what the world was like.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we need to move on to Thrawn, I think.
We do. Actually, before we do, I I did want to ask, because we haven't talked about it at all. Like, don't give me any spoilers, but how you liking Survivor?
Oh, well, Eric, I had this.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been good. I won't tell him nothing.
Aw,
Okay.
dang
Sorry.
it, Gonk. Spoiler watch.
All right, but no, it's been good. I've been
It's
liking
been fun?
it. Yeah, I've been.
Been having a good time?
I just don't get to play it enough. But I've been trying.
I know that feeling.
I'm not trying to rush through. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
take my time. Like last night when I streamed. Last night, yeah. When I streamed, I was like, okay, I'm heading there for a story mission.
Mhm.
On the way though, there's that, and
Oh.
that. I'm gonna stop by on those on the way. So that's what I did. So I did like one story mission,
Yeah.
but I stopped by different things. You know, whether I fought like a boss or I unlocked like a chest or
Sure.
whatever the case was. Like they were like kind of on the route that I was going,
Okay.
but a little bit of a detour along the way.
Yeah.
And I have fun doing that, and I enjoy
Sure.
seeing like different aspects or looking around, being like, oh, that's from this, I
Mhm.
think, you know. And
Do you feel like you've gotten into the story a lot, or do you still feel like you're scratching the surface?
I mean, I feel like I'm pretty good into the
Yeah?
story right now.
Okay.
I don't know how much is left of it.
I feel
That's
like
one thing,
I'm
too.
playing Zelda right now, and I feel like I haven't done anything.
That game's too much for me. Like I've been trying to play a little bit here and there, and
Yeah.
every once in a while, I'm just like, it's too much.
I mean, I'm loving everything I'm doing, but yeah, I just feel like there's like so many directions and so many things like that.
Mhm.
I'll play Survivor eventually, but I hope you're having a good
Yeah,
time.
people keep asking, why isn't Eric here? I'm like,
Yeah.
well, he's playing Zelda.
Yeah. I mean, that game will be there whenever I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I'm excited. The one thing that's great is people keep on like, Aaron, do the story. Or they're like, hey, I just finished the game. I can't wait till you get to the end. I'm like, well, good. That just means there's more stuff in the future of this story that I haven't gotten to that I can be excited for.
Sure.
But I'm still going to enjoy what I'm getting to now. So,
Mhm.
so I have more to look forward to, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah. All right. Well, now I say we get into Thrawn.
Thrawn.
I went ahead and took this off the shelf. This is one of my prized possessions of my collection. This is my Grand Admiral Thrawn Black Series, signed by Timothy Zahn, the author of this book. I read Heir of the Empire when it came out actually not when it came out. I guess I read it around the time of the special editions.
Really?
Yeah, but it was something that really, really affected me, and I really loved that.
It came out in the early 90s, right?
I think it was like 91 or 92. And I probably got it a couple years after that at the library. But
Did you stole it from the library like you did the other stuff?
no,
Oh, okay.
I took it back.
Okay.
I mean, it was one of those books that I would like check out over and over again. But yeah, this is a character that has been with me for a very long time in Star Wars. And I should say too, this is not a seal. Like, this doesn't come sealed. You actually can open this thing, so I have no problem showing you guys what this thing has, because it's pretty amazing. This is primarily the Thrawn from Rebels. If you can see this
He's
here.
got his little
But
lizards.
you can see a lot of really cool stuff here. It's fantastic. On the back is the bottom of the Chimera Star Destroyer as well, which is really cool. So I just wanted to show people that and just really emphasize how much I love this character. And after reading this book, how much more I love this character.
The book
I
is
hesitate
pretty
to
good.
use the word double, but I think I like it twice as much.
You like
Admiral Thrawn.
the Thrawn twice as much?
Yeah. I loved this book. This last month for me has been very busy, and I've been juggling a lot of things, both at Blind Wave and personally. So I fell behind on my reading, not because I wasn't engaged, just because I was really busy. And at the beginning of this week, I realized I got like 8 hours left.
Really?
And I did not have time. I had 2 days where I was doing Zelda
Yeah.
and a bunch of other stuff, and I thought I might not be able to finish. I might have to ask Aaron, like, hey, can we not do Badonkagonk? Because I don't think I'm going to be able to have it done. But the last 3 days, I was like, all right, I'll just get through as much as I can and see where I am. Maybe I'll finish reading it like a couple hours before Badonkagonk or something. But
Sure.
the last 2 nights, I've stayed up until about 2 or 3 a.m.
Oh, geez, really?
In utter bliss.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even feel tired.
I do want to
I feel like my brain got rested by how great this book was.
I do want to say, I think one thing with it too is that I've listened to every other book so far.
Yeah.
On a faster speed.
Uh-huh.
This is the only book I didn't, because the delivery that Mark Thompson has as Thrawn, I felt like was wrong to increase it any faster. He has such a good Thrawn voice in this audiobook. Like if you read the book, it's great.
It's a great book to read, I'm sure.
If you get a chance to listen to the audiobook, Mark Thompson does such a good job with Admiral Thrawn.
I hesitate to use the word perfect, but I'm using the word perfect. He sounds exactly like Lars Mikkelsen.
Like Lars is just done so well.
He has this tension up in his mouth, but it's still coming from the diaphragm, piece by piece.
There's something about the way too where like he's just talking. He's like, he quivers on his lip. A speed of sweat goes across his forehead. And I'm like,
and it doesn't work if you because I tried it and I was like, I need to save some time, and I increased to a little bit, and it doesn't work when he's like, his brow slightly goes up, and there's a bit. It doesn't work.
No,
his brow slightly goes up.
It needs it. I think it's part of the reason why this book is the audiobook was as long as it was. It was like 16 hours.
Yeah.
I think it's because, well, I can't read this quickly. I have to be Thrawn, and Thrawn is very, I don't know, methodical and logical, and he takes his time to get to where he needs to get to, and it's great.
It's also a cool element in this book. As I was reading, there were certain parts where I'm like, I think this is good, but you could have shortened this up to maybe make the book a little quicker. But I got to the end, I'm like, no, you can't cut anything out. It's too perfect.
I think it was done really well.
Timothy Zahn is so good. So this is your first Timothy Zahn.
I've never read a Timothy Zahn book before.
This
is up there with me for I really enjoyed Brotherhood and Master and Apprentice. I enjoyed both of those a lot. They have some of my favorite characters in them, of course. Yeah. But this one is up there with that. And Thrawn, I just have from Rebels. The first time me meeting Thrawn, I was familiar with Thrawn.
Yeah.
But the first time me meeting him and having this is what the character is was in Rebels. It was season 3, episode 1.
Mm-hmm. In order to defeat an enemy, you must know them.
Yeah. And he's just this book does such a good job of introducing you to him. Yeah. Where did he come from, and who is he? And we journey the ranks, right? I don't know how long this book took place, because it feels like we're over I don't know, it's over 7 years or something.
It feels like that, yeah.
Because we go from they find him to he's a cadet to he's a lieutenant to eventually being an admiral,
Yeah.
And it's just. I enjoyed that whole journey.
Yeah.
And
if I could have Mark Thompson read every book I ever read again, I will quit Blind Wave and just start reading books.
What?
24/7. He's so good. He's that good.
As long as he doesn't do all the books.
He's also great at explaining action in such a sometimes audiobook people you can just tell they're reading. Sometimes you can tell they're reading for the first time. He just he gets you in the action, he's so good at it.
Inflecting certain moments with the actions going on.
Yeah. And he makes such distinct character sounds too.
Yeah. Well, I never really got confused too much. Sometimes I get confused between certain characters talking every once in a while. This one I didn't feel like I did. He does a really good job of having a distinction between, especially when it's characters talking to each other. Mm-hmm. They're usually distinct enough that I don't get them confused with each other. Yeah. And it must be so hard to do that because I can't imagine trying to is he doing it on the fly? Does he go through and give a voice to everyone before he starts reading? I don't know how you do it, but he does a good job. I was very surprised in this book though about how much Orinda Price was in it.
Right?
I was surprised.
I never once asked to care about Governor Price any more than I did.
Rebels.
I thought she's an okay character, but there's nothing special. And now I want to rewatch all Rebels and be like, why do I care about this lady?
Dude, I would say this. The book does a good job of taking her into what I feel like she is in Rebels. Yeah.
It does. You know what? It does a really good job in making Imperial characters sympathetic, but never once losing what makes them our antagonists.
Yeah.
No.
Except I never didn't root for the Empire.
Yeah, no, I get you. I understand.
I was never I hope they beat Thrawn,
Night Swan is trying to start the rebellion. I'm like, Night Swan, we'll get you soon. In my head, I'm like, yes, get him, Thrawn.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, I think I might have a new favorite Imperial.
Thrawn? Or are you talking about Eli?
I like Eli, but Thrawn I kind of put in a different echelon of Imperials. Eli Vanko might be my new favorite.
Not Yularen?
I like Yularen.
But
I like Yularen outside of the Empire. I like Eli Vanko for many different reasons, but I love his attitude. I love how. We'll have to get more into the book.
Sure.
I love him.
Yeah.
I love him so much.
This book too. I love. It had Thrawn. It had Price. It had Yularen. Mm-hmm. It had Palpatine. It had there were so many people. I'm like, Melanie, this book has so many people that I recognize their name. They're not new people. Yeah. They're people that I loved from Clone Wars or Rebels, and they're being brought in. It was so.
I remember when they first mentioned Price. I was like, wait, Price? You mean Price from Lothal? That Price? And I had to like kind of go back and be like, oh no, okay, Price is in here. Sweet.
Price mining.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we're slowly learning the connections that her and Thrawn have with each other and stuff too. All the way, like the book goes, I feel like all the way to about the time he's in Rebels. Like, I feel like that's because she mentions, like, I have some rebels that need to be taken care of, and I think you're the perfect person for that, you know?
No,
like,
if you are hesitant to read this book just because you're like, well, there's a lot of various things, there's corners of the galaxy I don't really want to get into. Like, if you're a Rebels fan and you're mildly interested in Thrawn, who is being set up as the next big bad for Star Wars?
Sure.
I mean, he is. He's going to be in Ahsoka. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on with Grand Admiral Thrawn. I recommend the book just because I felt like I could follow him right into season 3 of Rebels and lose nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we haven't read the other 2 books yet.
I know.
You know?
Isn't there 6 total?
Well, there's like 2 trilogies, I think.
Yeah.
So, like, this isn't a trilogy.
Thank God there's 6.
Which
I wish there was 12.
Well, we have a lot to read before Ahsoka comes out,
We have
too,
a lot
you know?
in August. I understand.
And we have Ahsoka. We haven't covered that
Ahsoka.
one yet either.
Yeah.
I think this book did a really good. Like I've always liked Thrawn, like in Rebels, but I think this book put him to where I didn't just view him as like the Sherlock Holmes Imperial bad guy.
Yeah.
More like I feel like there's more to him now, you know, and like is he bad? Like him and his Night Swan kind of talking was a really good scene that I was like,
yeah.
Oh, whoa, what's this? You know, but I don't know. I don't
I
know
was
if we
like,
should jump to that.
what
I don't know
the
if we should
hell
work
is
our way
going
through
on
or
in
what.
Wild Space?
Yeah, I don't know.
He met the devil. He met Palpatine, and he's like, but there's a true evil out there. I'm
Yeah.
like, true evil?
So
Do you know what this kid does?
so in this book, we learn that Thrawn's from the Chiss.
Chiss ascendancy.
Now, he was in exile originally, right? Before? Is that how that worked out too? Do you know from Heir of the Empire? Like,
Yes.
he was in exile
Yeah.
then too, right?
Yeah, he comes back from Heir to the Empire, yeah.
So in this one here,
It's a really
like,
cool way of, like, mixing what Timothy's on. You know, he's able to just do it again. Like, how rare is that, probably, for
Let me write
an author?
another story of the same
Yeah.
character again.
Yeah,
And-
he's like, you know, you were hired to do these kind of like, you know, off to the side things, but people love it so much, and now we're just hiring you to do it, but for realsies, you
Yeah.
know? That's a really cool opportunity. But yeah, he does a lot of stuff to kind of like mix a little bit, because, you know, I'm not really sure how much Timothy Zahn's version of Thrawn kind of was meant to be in Rebels. Like, certainly the archetype, but not necessarily the substance and the history.
Yeah, not the person.
But Zahn comes in and says, oh, no, you can do that. And they do. And I think it's exactly why when we were at Celebration and Dave Filoni talks about the heir to the Empire and how we're bringing in Zahn to consult on this guy.
Yeah, I think that you could lead into that same kind of story, right? But no, in this one here, we have him being found as like an exiled Chiss with some guy who can just happen to speak his language, luckily being there, which was, what's the language called?
Starts with an A, I think, right?
Is it an A? I thought it was a C as well.
You might be right.
Someone in the chat will say, and then I'll be like, there it is. But I'll think of it later. But having him had been exiled, and then the first 2 chapters of the book of them kind of like finding him and bringing him in and everything. I was like, okay, this is all right. We're gonna find Thrawn and stuff like that. And then like I love them being on the ship and getting to Coruscant and being like, wait a minute, where are we going? You know?
Oh, we're going to the palace.
Yeah, we're heading straight to the Emperor. And it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So Cybisti, that's it. That's why I thought it started with C.
Yeah,
'cause
okay,
it's
gotcha.
Cybisti.
Do you speak Cybisti?
And I love the every once in a while he's like, it's why you're so like he says whatever it is, and then Eli's like, yeah.
He means in between.
Yeah. And I just like I like their companionship, I guess, too, because as you go through, like Eli's like, I don't want to be here, and then it's like, well, now we're gonna send you and this Chiss to the cadet academy place, right? You're gonna start learning to be Imperials, and he already gets like a lieutenant badge or something like that. I think like
He does
automatically.
Yeah.
Which I love. There's so many times that he's like, I'm just gonna play everything as cool as I can.
Yep.
But not have all my cards just out in the open.
Yeah.
Like when he went to play cards.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
literally, he like has this lieutenant badge thing that he doesn't put on until he's like, I need to put this on now. Too soon, it's not gonna work. Too late, I'm gonna get caught.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where sometimes in Rebels, like, he's just like, I'm gonna pull this out of the hat, and I'm right. You know, like this just sometimes like he just fell into exactly like I understand why he's getting to the point he's getting to, and it just made him seem so much more formidable, right?
Yeah.
There's so many Imperials, and we've seen it in Rebels and whatever, where it's like they are dumb.
Yeah.
You're like, what are you doing? They're either too much of an ego or pride, or maybe they're just underestimating the enemies and stuff.
Yeah.
But we saw it in Rebels too, where it's like, which one was it? Was it Constantine? Where it's like, we have them trapped. Don't move.
Yeah.
He's like, he wants the glory for himself. Go, you know? And it's like, well, if he wouldn't have moved, I had them all. And it was always like his incompetence.
Yeah.
Like, not Thrawn's, but it was the incompetence
Others,
of his people that would make him lose whatever it was.
Yeah.
Or big, giant tree thunderstorm things.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, like, I don't know how you plan for that either. But
No, I don't know.
But this one here, like, all the things he came up against had such a natural feel of him just figuring things out and explaining to Eli, or Eli also figuring things out, which I thought was really good too.
I love like Eli realizing that, oh, Thrawn's been kind of like teaching me. I always thought he was holding me back, but he's been teaching me this whole time.
He's been like molding him.
Yeah. And I just love that moment at the end when he gives him the journal and he talks about what Thrawn thinks a friend is and gives it to him. Oh, so good.
I like the epilogue too that it had. The thing he reads from the journal. I was like, that was really good. I was trying to find it early because I was going to read it again, but I just remember being like, that was real. I love this.
Yeah. The epilogue is so good because it ties in, like, you know, almost every chapter starts with Thrawn, kind of giving like his journal thoughts. Sure. And then so many times throughout the entire book, he's constantly teaching himself how to read human emotion. Mm-hmm. And then someone he cannot read walks in the door. And he's just like, okay, all I'm getting is power and confidence.
Yep.
And there's Vader.
Yep.
I think it's such a cool, like, stopgap, like, because when I got to that moment, I was like, he can't read him. Like, he's even reading the Emperor, you know?
Yeah.
But Vader comes out, and thus, a challenge.
I also love, like, you go through this whole book, and you spend all this time with, I don't know, there's rebel activity, there's smugglers, there's mining, there's all this stuff going on.
Yeah.
And within all this, Thrawn takes this little piece.
Yeah.
Oh, I learned this little piece of information. Oh, wait, did they have a slave transport? What was this here? And then, like, he meets up with the Emperor, and he's like, tell me about the Death Star. He's like,
that moment was
what are you talking about?
Yeah. Where did you hear that name?
I just love, like, he is so smart. He's like, I know there's this, I know there's this, I know there's this. Like, he's even talking with Night Swan a little bit, too, trying to, like, maybe share a little bit of information.
I love the conversation with Night Swan so much.
It's so good.
It's so good. Like, if I had time, I just would have read it again. Or
Yeah.
listened to it again by Mark Thompson.
I started it again. Like, I've gone through it once, and I was like, I'm going to start this one more time, because maybe then I kind of, like, will grasp a little bit more. I'll understand, like, oh, this is where we were going with this that I didn't get before, you know? And that stuff happens. But
Night Swan's on there right now.
Night
we have
Swan.
some images. But, again, if you have not listened to the audiobook and you read the book, just go have a good time, listen to Mark Thompson, because I don't have the experience of reading this book, but I read Heir to the Empire, and it's really elevated. So do yourself a favor and listen to the book.
Sure.
It's on Audible.
The only problems I have with the audiobooks every once in a while is some sound effects feel too high for me.
Yeah, that can happen.
I had one.
There was one alien in here. It was so high. I wanted to just throw my earphone into the mower. But that was the only really bad one for me.
There was one, and it wasn't bad. It actually just kind of worked. But I was sitting on my deck listening, and I had my headphones on, and there's a whole segment. I think it's talking with Night Swan, where there's like locust sounds constantly, like locust, crickets, all that kind of stuff. And I was just sitting on my deck, and I'm like, man, they're so loud.
Really?
And then I took off my headphones, and I'm like, oh, yeah, it was in the book.
Yep, that happened to me when they were like at a party and there were people talking in the background, and I'm bad at hearing anyway. So at one point I was like, okay, no one's speaking to me.
No one's speaking to me. It's okay. But no, it's done really well, and I love that confrontation with the Emperor talking about the Death Star and how he's figured all this stuff out. Like, he doesn't know exactly, but also we had the conversation with Night Swan. This is what I was getting to earlier, and we kind of jumped around a little bit, but. So he's in exile is what he's told.
Yeah.
And then he goes in with the Empire. He does his cadet work and everything. He beats this, he beats that, does all this stuff. And then when he's talking with Night Swan, he goes through a whole story of like, I was not exiled, I was chosen.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And at first I'm like, is he lying about this too? Or what's going on? But I love the idea that it's like, the exile story we went with, so I would seem more, I don't know, suitable to join in with them.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that he is placed here by the Chiss ascendancy, and kind of looking into the Empire as like, are they worth it? Are they a necessary evil for whatever else is out there that they know of?
Yeah.
That we might need them to fight. And I'm like, well, that could be interesting. What does that mean? What is he more worried about than the Empire? And the Death Star is one of the things that he's looking into, because he's like, if this can be used against my people, it's a problem. And that's why I think, too, like this character, he's up there a little bit more for me now, where I'm like, I don't solely look at him as a villain.
Yeah.
He's doing what he feels he has to for his Chiss people, right? And that has to do with, like, I need to fit in with the Empire and be a really good admiral and whatever. And now he's a grand admiral. And in order for me to hopefully save my people, I have to pair with this. Yeah. And if that's all story bits that we're getting, where is that going and culminating to, you know?
I know.
Like, I don't know what to
that can
expect
happen
of that.
entirely on the periphery, and I can't wait to go into literally uncharted space. And hopefully,
like,
learn
is that
more
what
about
he's
it.
dealing with now? You know, or like, where has he
I don't know,
been?
man.
What is he doing?
He's
Is it like another race? Is it, you know, monsters? Is it like using Vong were in the old EU? Like, is it something like that? Like, what kind of, what thing scares him more, like you said, than the Emperor and the Empire?
Yeah.
Because it seems like such a terrible, evil force.
Yeah.
That he's like, I'm willing to work with this necessary evil to prepare for whatever else could be coming for us, kind of thing. But it felt like he had an idea of what it could be. He just didn't say, you know?
He didn't say. Fucking Timothy Zahn didn't tell us, you know?
I know.
I want to know. The thing I think I like the most about him, especially because, like, how do you make me root for an Imperial character? He is almost entirely devoid of ego.
Yeah.
He has duty. He has practicality. Like, at one point, when he says, like, oh, I must do this because there is simply no one else who can. When he says that, it doesn't sound like he's being egotistical.
No.
It's just, as a matter of fact, I am the only one good enough.
Yeah.
You know?
And with that, I love that he's, Arenda Price at least says that he is bad at politics.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, everyone says that to him.
Right? Like, he is not a political guy. He does not say things because he thinks it's going to be received well.
Yeah.
He says it because this is what it is.
Sure.
I either believe that this is the case or this is the case.
Yeah. And you kind of get the feeling like if he wanted to, he could be better at it. He just doesn't see any use for it. It's not practical to him, right? I mean, his mindset does go to a more authoritative mindset. You know, diversity is something that he fights against, because when everybody has an opinion, there is no order and there is no objective truth, because anything can be true in that regard. You know, it's really interesting stuff. I love when a character like that can get me, and I can disagree with him fundamentally on almost every single moral choice they would make, but I still fucking love reading it, you know?
Yeah, but I understand everything about it.
Yeah.
No, and it's interesting too. They have the battle of him. You said about diversity. It made me think of like the imperial racism.
Sure.
That has been a thing.
Xenophobia.
Where, yeah, we've talked about like, well, they don't usually have aliens in there. That's weird.
Yeah.
But they kind of at one point gave like a pseudo reasoning, I suppose, talking about how like, well, we used to be the Republic, and most of the separatists were aliens, and we don't agree with them, so we don't like them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, that's just it.
Right.
All right. Well,
I love that. Like most of the Imperials have that point of view, and then also they have the point of view of like Coruscant and the Inner Rim being, you know, so much superior as well. Generally, whenever you think of ignorance, you kind of think of people that aren't in cultural hubs, you know.
Sure.
But the people that we see, like Eli Vanko and Horenda's parents and stuff, like they're a lot more open and acceptable to those type of things, you know. But yeah, I really love that Thrawn, like, he comes with no ego. That's my favorite thing about him. Whenever I look at other Imperials, especially like you mentioned Constantine and some of those other characters.
It's their pride.
Yeah, it's pride and it's their vanity and it's their ambition. And I won't say he's devoid of ambition, but it's not necessarily self-serving. It's like that he's ambitious for the greater good, but his definition of greater good is a little more warped than we like to think about it, you know?
Sure. No, I mean, you could go into a story where it's like there is a pseudo redemption for Thrawn to fight a greater evil that you didn't know he was even trying to fight this whole time, that he's been fighting you for the Empire.
Yeah.
You know, like we could go a route kind of similar to that. We've redeemed Darth Vader and he just did terrible things because.
Yeah.
Like He wasn't doing it because he thought there was a greater evil that he had to do this for. He just fell into the dark side, worked for the Emperor, and killed off tons of
And it's not like he made up for all the bad he did.
No.
But he was able to do one good thing at the end.
Yeah.
And that was enough.
Yeah. But I mean, like, if all of a sudden, Death Star 3 shows up, or 4, I guess, if you count Starkiller Base, but
sure.
If another Death Star showed up that Thrawn is
There's
now
like
prepared.
4 in Legends continuity. It's okay.
But
There's
like,
a prototype.
Thrawn's prepared for it or something, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, we would not have been ready if it wasn't for Thrawn doing this stuff, I'm like, I understand, but he dies in the process. Like, you could do a route like that maybe.
Sure.
After reading this, that's what I think. Before, I'd be like, he's just a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's a bad guy for Rebels, but he's so cool and he's so smart and calculated. I love it.
That whole ego and ambition thing, I love the part in the Night Swan conversation when he really sits there and talks about, like, the Emperor is not going to live forever, and the next person, maybe I'll be able to choose or help guide that
manipulate
person.
it in a way, right?
Literally the heir to the Empire. And he does not think of it as himself.
No.
He
doesn't
thinks
think of him doing it.
He thinks just of his duty to his people and strategy itself,
Sure.
But I love that he is describing himself, but he doesn't have enough ego to really do it yet.
Sure.
The Ahsoka series, maybe.
I also love during that conversation, too, where he's kind of working with, like, he has a respect. There's a mutual respect between both of them. And he, like, invites him to join the Chiss.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Because he viewed him as, like, you have like a knowledge intelligence type of thing about you, and you're just a good leader.
Sure.
As opposed to, like, a lot of other people in the Empire I've seen are either not good leaders. Like, Eli was the other one.
Yeah.
Those like the only two.
Yeah.
That I feel like he was like, you're a good leader, and you can think, like, logically, and like you can get through, like, different things.
And also he considers him his friend, and he goes that entire book without telling anybody anything about the Chiss.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't tell Palpatine, and he swears fealty to Palpatine. But his friend Eli, hey man, you want to go hang out with the fam?
Yeah.
Dude,
I was wondering what was going to happen when Yularen showed up.
Yeah, right?
He's like, why should I put you in jail right now?
I should shoot you where you stand.
Oh, no, what did he hear?
Yeah.
He's like, why are you here? I was like, oh, he didn't hear a dang thing.
Shit.
Okay. Old ears.
Yeah.
But no, Eli, like, the growth on him, I love that. I can't remember who it was. There was someone who was giving, like, some kind of, like, speech or message, and Eli, like, took a picture of the recording and looked at everything in the background to try to, like, all right, let's prepare. Here's all the art and stuff in the background. Yeah. What can we learn from this? And then Thrawn's like, well, he's just there in front of other people's art.
Yeah.
So this is useless.
Yep.
He's like, oh. It's like, but it would have been a good idea in other situations of what could have been moved or what was changed and stuff. So
well, he has that one moment.
Like, you have the right idea. It's just in this moment, it's not useful. Yeah. But it's like Eli's growth. Like, he's learning from Thrawn of what's happening, and here's like a new step. He's like, I know the art and what they do and their culture and stuff is important in their decisions, so let me take this and try to use it.
Thrawn is kind of like in that moment, it's like, oh, he's doing what Daddy does.
Kind of, yeah.
It was like, that part's not important because this guy's just trying to steal all the art. He doesn't care about what it symbolizes. He only cares about what it's worth. Yeah.
Yep. But I just like seeing the growth of Eli a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
And the moment whenever he finally got his, like, promotion.
His promotion. Long time coming.
And it, like, Thrawn was like, it was weird too, because I think it was Price who was talking to him. He's like, what do you mean they won't promote him? Like, it was like he didn't even think about it being a weird thing, right? And he's like, well, we need to fix that. His ship being at the bottom of the list. Like, all the things pushed against him, and he still, like, slowly just comes out on top.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it may be Emperor Yularen Price. Like, he has some connections and stuff to things.
That's got to be probably why Thrawn, I mean, there's many reasons why I think Thrawn and Eli really kind of, like, are magnets to each other, but, like, Eli also doesn't have much of an ego. Like, he kind of just wants a humble life where he's like, I just want to do, supply management or whatever he wants to do. But even whenever they bring both of them back to Coruscant, and they say, we're here to celebrate two wonderful officers, Eli does not, like, two people were summoned, him and Thrawn, and he doesn't think that he's one of the two.
Yeah.
And they go, and, we're going to promote you, Ensign, too. And he goes, oh, my God, they're going to make me a lieutenant. I can't believe it. Lieutenant Commander. He's like, what? Oh, I was so happy for him in that moment.
Nope, it was good.
Yeah.
I was happy for Thrawn for, like, kind of helping to push that more, too, because
it
was something that he wanted to have happen, too. He wanted both of them to come up the ranks together. So,
And it was, I guess, nice for Thrawn to have someone that he could semi-trust
Oh yeah.
throughout, too.
No, Eli's one of the ones, and
Because at first, he talks about with Night Spawn, he's like, when they first brought me to him and he happened to speak the language I can speak, I thought he was a plant.
Sure.
So
he kept him close to try to make sure he wasn't a spy for him.
A short 12 years later, or however long it was, they were able to create that bond and invite him out with a Nuchis lady.
Well, and Eli had a lot of story with him too. Like I think, like we met like his parents, right? We had his struggle of not being promoted and him being stuck as this just interpreter basically kind of job and an assistant,
and being like the outsider in the like the core world stuff, being like the yokel that lives out there.
He's in
to
wild
the point
space
where he has that twang in his voice. He speaks like this, can't get away from it. They talk about how Price, she had it too, but she lost it a bit. But Eli doesn't even think about trying to get rid of his accent. That's who he is. Yeah. Why would he do that?
No, he'll say crate spit.
Crate spit.
Right? Isn't that what it was?
Yeah.
It wasn't great. It was crate, right?
Crate. Yeah, I think so.
I thought so. He's like, it means like, I don't know, what do you say? Ridiculous or something. But
I love when he said it and Thrawn's like, what was that term? Crate spit.
I love him like just trying to absorb. Yeah. Like, guys, all Thrawn's doing, like, in most of this book is just trying to absorb everything he can and then push things back out in a positive fashion for himself, I guess.
So many other Imperials in the story act like they know everything, but Thrawn puts it on Front Street that he's learning as he's going.
Sure.
And how that's the most important thing is to learn. It's not to know, it's to learn. And anybody can know stuff, but it's a skill to learn.
Yeah. I've enjoyed seeing, like, having this book and having, like, the Tarkin book, kind of getting, like, their different upbringings or rise to power.
Wasn't it exciting as hell when Tarkin showed up? Yeah. I'm like, oh, dude, it's a crossover from the other book.
Yeah. No, I liked it. Did you, they mentioned, Kiana? Yeah, Kiana. The pirate queen lady? Mm-hmm. Like, Thrawn mentioned her, or at least, like, I don't know, smugglers of hers or pirates of hers or something like that. Like, some kind of connection to them. And I'm like, wasn't she just in the Tarkin book? Yeah. Like, that's who he, like, burn up in a spaceship or whatever, right? Like, that's like, ugh.
Yeah. But, like, I think they're pretty similar characters. The big difference being ego, because, Tarkin is ego personified.
Yes.
Like, he is about dominating those under him, whereas Thrawn, I don't think, is necessarily about domination. It is in terms of battle and strategy, but it's not to – he doesn't do it just to win. He does it for a purpose. Right?
Sure.
And who knows? I mean, I hope – I don't know what the contents of the other books that we're going to be getting into are, but I hope that that's not stamped out in the Ahsoka show, because it really is the most interesting thing about him.
Like which parts? What do you mean?
Like Thrawn's greater good feeling. Like he has a reason he's doing all this, and it's not just –
something moved over there.
Yeah.
Tell me, doctor.
Do we need to do a whole new stream or whatever, or will it just come back up?
Shouldn't. As long as it's still up and running. What does OBS say?
Nexus says we back. Are we back?
So that was Thrawn. That was really cool. All done. Nothing else.
We're back.
You might be able to right-click and reload the chat itself, maybe.
Well, I think Gonk was upset that you took his thermal detonator, and he ruined our internet. So why don't you put that back?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Immediately goes down. All right, everybody. Sorry about that. We're back. We're going to be continuing our discussion about Thrawn for a little tiny bit left here. What were we talking about?
I don't know.
All right, everybody. We'll see you. No.
I don't know. I don't remember what we were talking about. I know I was wanting to talk a little bit more about Price, I suppose, because we talked a lot about Thrawn.
Yes.
And Price was more in this book than I thought. I mean, I didn't think she would be in this book at all.
Me either. I was completely surprised.
I guess I didn't expect how much of a time, area this would cover.
Yeah.
You know?
Like when she was introduced, I'm like, oh, okay, so we'll meet her before way before she becomes governor and all that stuff.
Because when they found Thrawn, they had they weren't headhunters. What were they? V-wings maybe?
Yeah.
They didn't have TIE fighters yet.
Yeah.
Right. So like, how close to the Clone Wars is that?
Yeah.
Or is it like maybe it's still a year away from the Clone Wars, but they were in the wild space, so maybe they don't get like the newest stuff right away or something. You know, I don't know. But because of having the V-wings, I'm like, well, this must be pretty close to the Clone Wars. But then by the time we end, I'm like, well, we're into Rebels, I think, territory now. You know, like she's Governor Price. She's talking about a rebel problem that she's having and everything. Like, I don't know. But no, her story I thought was interesting. I think that she's kind of like what's a good way to put it? Her story is kind of like a foil to Thrawn.
I would say
in
so.
a way. Like I don't.
And why he's not able or has no patience for or doesn't really care about politics.
Yeah.
Like the way that she's set up, you can tell why she's good at that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I felt like her rise to power to being governor came not necessarily because she was, you know, Thrawn has like this know-how, this strategy, these things that he does, and it gives results. Price, I feel like, was more because of what she was worth to someone else in a way.
Yeah.
Like Tarkin could use her and her information.
Yeah.
So I will put you in as governor because of what I can, what information I can get from you. It's not because you are the best suited to be governor, because you know strategy, you have an idea of what to do. It's because of what you're worth to me.
Yeah.
Whereas Thrawn, sure, he has a value to him as well, but I think it's because he's also capable. So he earns, against all odds, you know, being an alien in the Empire and stuff, like he earns his ranks and growth against everyone else trying to be against him. Whereas Price kind of just politically spy shenanigan kind of way.
She has an
pushes
element,
herself there because
she does, and
of
she
that.
has an element of being vindictive and petty.
Yeah.
Like if she can screw you over, she will too.
Sure.
Like she'll try to get what she wants, but she'll also try to screw you over. Whereas Thrawn, as long as he wins, he will elevate people that are against him. Right? Like that one TIE fighter pilot that was part of the group that was trying to, you know, rough him up during the academy, and then he tricks that guy, or you know, they kind of create that elaborate scheme, like, hey, he would be a good TIE fighter pilot, and it turns out Thrawn was right. And Eli has that conversation with him where he like makes fun of Thrawn. It's like he didn't think when he tried to screw me over that I would achieve this, and you know. It's like, what, you think my parents got me this? And Eli wants to say, Thrawn got you that.
Thrawn gave you this. He told them to do this to you as a punishment, but also as to help you get into where you should be.
Like Price would rub it in.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
Thrawn doesn't care. Why was that a big? Who cares?
Yeah.
Like I needed to achieve something, and this is a better empire for it.
And Price had a moment that goes really well with that, where it was about her only friend she's had for years, right? Which were Digger or Driller or something like that, right? And I don't know. I kept hearing Chewie, but it wasn't Chewie. But it was something like that. And it's like the only friend she had, but she would betray them.
Yeah.
Both. Yep. To get the stuff she's after.
She would.
And Thrawn he didn't want Eli not to get a promotion. You know?
we got Driller up here too.
Driller.
Yeah.
So there's just this difference between the two characters and their rise to power that I thought was interesting, especially since they have a connection,
separate but equal,
like together with this book and with Rebels and everything.
Yeah.
But I have a video too. But leading into that, I guess we can watch the video because it has a few things with it. One, the video I was wanting to show is a clip. It's the first time that I would have met Admiral Thrawn. It's the first time him showing up.
His first scene in Rebels.
It's the first time he shows up in Rebels. And I wanted to watch this and then talk about a few things in it. In general, but also just like, I don't know. It's interesting to be like, this is the first time I ever met this man, but I just spent 16 hours listening to his entire life story. No, this is awesome because
I legitimately was just going to go home tonight and watch every Thrawn scene from Rebels.
Really?
Yeah.
No, yeah. So let's watch. This is the first time Admiral Thrawn ever showed up. Is season 3, episode 1 of Rebels.
There's Constantine.
I'm certain Governor Price is overestimating how organized the resistance is. While it's true there are pockets of rebellion, there has never been any evidence of a larger-scale, galaxy-wide operation.
And I would like to keep it that way, Admiral Constantine.
Grand Admiral Thrawn,
Grand Admiral?
The Emperor recently promoted me after
Yeah.
my victory at Badonkagonk.
That's right after. Okay.
Civilian casualties outnumbered the insurgents at the time.
Acceptable margins, Agent Callus. But there are no longer rebels in that sector.
Well, Thrawn, what do you think of Governor Price's theory about the rebels in the Lothal
They even said the
sector?
name. Okay.
They do.
Private are rebels rescued from Naraka prison, Hondo Onaka. Within the last hour, the Phoenix Squadron destroyed mining guild ships using the Zerida hyperspace waypoint. Taken separately, they may seem unrelated, but Onaka's cellmate was a laborer at our starfighter reclamation plant in the Yama system, one jump point away from the Zerida attack.
Grand Admiral
does the same stuff he does in the
Thrawn
books.
believes the
Yeah.
rebels intend to raid the plant
Yeah.
and steal fighters for their fleet.
Every ship they add to their arsenal increases the threat to our own armada and the Emperor's plans.
I trust you have a solution.
I will start my operations here and pull the rebels apart piece by piece. They'll be the architects of their own destruction.
And then I love. This clip didn't show
Does
it.
it not show it?
But then when it fades to the next one, it goes to the planet and his eyes stay in space.
Oh, yeah,
for
it
just a little
does.
bit
I remember
longer.
that. Yeah.
I just love that so
Huh.
much.
Well, let
But
me
yeah,
in a,
so
let me
you,
am-
you caught, huh?
Yeah. I got to amend an early statement. If you want to catch up right to the edge of when Thrawn is introduced in Rebels, it's the margin is that small.
It's not
you
very
can go
big.
right into his. 'Cause,
Yeah.
Like we see the scene where he becomes Grand Admiral.
Yeah, he becomes that. And he's like, he just recently promoted me. It's like Moff Tarkin, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like Grand Moff Tarkin. I will
Yeah.
give you this new rank. He gives Grand Admiral to
Yeah.
Thrawn. It's like, what's this ranking for? You know? But no, I was thinking about when the first time he showed up in Rebels was, and I was looking at this, and yeah, the thing that they mention is Baton,
Yeah.
right? And
No,
they're
that's
like,
amazing.
that's in the book. That's the last like battle that he has is against these insurgents and stuff. But
I never would have caught that. I mean, I would have tonight, but
yeah, whenever you watch
I'm
through
so
again,
glad
right?
you got it on
You're like, oh,
Badonkagonk.
that's Baton.
Yeah.
But what I think is interesting here too is that Callus then responds with like the insurgents' deaths were much lower than the civilians in that. And
Yep.
in this story here, like I didn't know what that meant at all in that, in that moment there.
Yeah.
But here, like it's not necessarily that he showed up and started just because Price thing's like, yes, but he took care of the rebels, and that's what matters, And like she's gonna jump
And
in
we
on
know
that.
we know exactly how she feels about that.
I mean, we see her just doing anything she can to save herself, right? She's like, they're going to find the body that I left back here,
Yeah.
which I can't have that happening. I got to get my parents out
Got
of
my
this
parents
place
out
and
of here.
everything. And she just starts shooting and blowing stuff
Yeah.
up just to get what she wants.
So much of her justification is mine, me, my parents,
Yeah.
what I need. Yeah.
So whenever I went back and I watched that and I was like, oh, and then like the book elements, I'm just thinking back and forth. I'm like,
Yeah.
So whenever I watched this originally, like I probably was thinking like, man, Thrawn just was killing whoever, I guess, huh? But here, and Price jumping in to defend about like, well, the rebels are taken care of there, so it worked. Like,
Yeah.
it just really pushes in this book what happens where it's like Price was behind that because the first thing Thrawn did was like get troopers down there right now, not for attacking, for rescue.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang, Thrawn, I love that. And it adds this element too where it's like it's not about him, like it's not like he doesn't care about anybody. He still wants to help people.
Yeah.
But the Empire needs to be what it is for whatever he's after.
That's awesome.
So I just thought it was a fun connection that I never would have connected before because
That's
I
my
didn't read the book.
favorite thing about Star Wars is that the living mythology changes no matter depending on the string you pull. I never would have, when I watched that the first time, been like, oh, yeah, I know that's what that is, and I know what that means. I know how they feel about it,
Yeah.
and it's different than what I should be feeling.
Yeah.
What Dave Filoni or whoever wrote that scene wasn't thinking about it, but now it's changed, and now I can think about it on a deeper level.
And that's
awesome.
That's just the first. I was just like, what's the first time I ever met Thrawn?
Yeah.
I wanted to watch that, so I watched that. I just put it on Disney Plus and watched
Yeah.
through that, and I remember like the eyes being like, oh yeah, the eyes. I forgot about these. They're so good. But
Yeah.
I wonder how many more either connections for this book or in the other books that we may have in elements that he says in Rebels and stuff too.
That's
that
cool.
Recontextualized. That'd be really cool to see.
I certainly was thinking about the trailer for season 3 of Rebels because it was revealed that Thrawn was in the trailer.
Okay.
That he was going to be in this season. I remember like the first line you hear is, "To defeat an enemy, you must know them." And I remember thinking like in that moment, I can go back and watch the reaction. I remember thinking like, no, they're bringing Thrawn into Rebels. That's crazy. But then in this book, when he's speaking with Night Swan, Night Swan says, "To defeat an enemy, you must know them." So he gets that line from him.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's cool. A little connection for me.
And this here and the book both dabble. Even Andor dabbles a little bit, where it's like there are rebel groups around, but they're not joined, right?
Sure.
And in this moment here, they're like, there's no evidence of a larger rebellion. And he's like, and I want to keep it that way, So he comes in with that. But
no, it's like when
cool
you
to
watch
see Night Swan kind of being another one of those smaller rebels where he's like, I wanted to band them together, but I can't.
Yeah.
But hopefully someone else will.
It's it's very much like Andor in that way, right?
Yeah.
Like I prepare for a sunrise I'll never see.
Yeah. Yeah. No, him, Night
With
Swan, Luthen. There's just elements where it's like they are fighting for what they think is right, and they may never see the light that comes, but they hope that what they're doing will get them there.
Yeah.
So
That's great. That's awesome. That really reminds me of kind of like in Clone Wars when Obi-Wan and Grievous meet up for like one of the first times, and he jumps down and says, "Hello there," and then you have to recontextualize. Oh, Obi-Wan's kind of mocking him when he says it in Episode 3. "Hello there," which is a meme, and we always think of that as Obi-Wan's thing. But I always like that it's like actually that's a thing they do with each other.
Thing, yeah. It's recontextual. If you just watch the movies,
Yeah.
it's got a different feel than if you read the books or watch the cartoons.
Which is true of all of Star Wars. You can't watch Episode 4 anymore the same way. You're always going to know that Obi-Wan is talking about Vader and Anakin. He knows they're the same person.
Sure.
But Alec Guinness didn't know that.
Even after watching the original trilogy, too. Like, once you finish the first 3 movies, you're like, you can't watch Episode 4 the same way.
Yeah. That's great.
Like, man, Obi-Wan.
Damn.
But, no, I thought with Price and stuff like that, I wanted to, like, bring that in, and I just, it's what he says, what Callus says, and what Price says, all there, and I was like, I feel like that gels so well with what I got in this book.
Yeah.
And I was really surprised for that being something, I don't know, when did Thrawn book come out versus when Rebels started?
This would have been like 2019. Am I right about that, or am I wrong? I don't know.
Because I was trying to think, I think this came out after Rebels did, right? Like, they didn't have the book yet. They did the book
I don't think so.
after, I thought.
Yeah.
Because Season 3, Episode 1 of Rebels was September of 2016.
Okay. 2016 was Rebels.
Thrawn.
This book was 2017, says Nexus?
April 2017, yeah.
Okay.
So this came out the next, like, I don't know, 6 months after that did.
Okay.
Roughly.
Gotcha.
So I wonder how much they paired off with that.
Well, it takes a long time to read these books or write these books too.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's like a story group thing going on there.
Yeah,
or
because having that name drop there, I
Yeah.
feel like, well, you must have been having a little bit of planning between some of that, right, or something.
And then I also have to think it takes a long time, and they make those episodes way in advance. So Timothy Zahn probably had the script for a year or two.
Is it one of
at
those
least.
things where it's like, was it in the book?
Yeah.
Or was it,
I don't know.
the end of the beginning of Rebels?
Sure.
Like, Rebels got finished, and they,
Yeah.
okay, well, here's this. So I got to get him to this point. What happened here? So I don't know. It's always fun to kind of think about, like, the process
is.
of all that. But I love seeing them gel together and be like, oh, dang,
I
that's
agree,
what this is.
and it's why I'm super soaked for Ahsoka.
Yeah.
It's why, like, so many elements of Timothy Zahn's work and Lars Mikkelsen coming in, playing the character, bringing all these things together, and it's why I do not want to stop reading these books.
No, yeah. I mean, we're getting close to the end now, and I know we
Yeah.
had a little hiccup and stuff, so we're going to be having to cut here and maybe not get to questions. But we still have more Thrawn that we'll get to talk about because we're going into the second of the trilogy, which was, what would you say it was called, Eric?
Thrawn Alliances, I think.
Thrawn
is what it's
Alliances?
called. Or is it Allegiance or Alliance? Crap! I was so confident.
Dang, Eric, you had it, and I thought you knew.
I'm sorry.
Because I want to know more about this shoot. And I hope when we get into it, what was her name? Arizeliu?
Oh, the Chiss lady.
At the end that Eli went to. I want to know more about that. That stuff's going to be so cool. I think she was an admiral as well or something.
Yeah, she had an admiral.
Alliances.
Yeah, Alliances.
So it's called Thrawn Alliances. And I hope it's also read by Mark Thompson.
Yep.
And
Better be.
I already like the writing and everything of Timothy Zahn in this one, so I'm looking forward to seeing, like, where he goes, what story. Because, like, it goes right up to Rebels. So is this one going to be within that same year period? Is it going to be during Rebels? Like, when's this going to be? And I'm excited.
One of the things that I'm most intrigued by getting more into these books is, that action figure that I got that I had signed by Timothy Zahn. I met him in Parkersburg during a toy show, and I got that signed. And he was selling copies of his book. I hadn't read any of the books yet, but I bought one and got it signed. And on the cover is Thrawn and Anakin Skywalker. And he mentions here he met Anakin Skywalker.
That'd be cool, yeah.
So I think in the future we might
wondering
get
that,
like a
too.
flashback and maybe get some scenes, because not only did he meet Anakin Skywalker, now he's met Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And maybe we can do like a parallel story thing if we're going to be getting anything of that at all in these books.
It would be cool to go back and see like what his
Yeah.
Anakin story was that he mentioned, because that was
Yeah.
kind of like one of the things he had to mention to the Emperor,
Yeah.
right? Was like Skywalker.
Yeah.
And
Jedi General Anakin
when would that have been, and
Skywalker.
what were they doing? Like, was that another moment of like? I'm trying to remember what all he said, because I don't remember him talking about it too much. But like with him like working with the Empire, was he like also like prodding to see what? Because I don't know how far away the Chiss are. Like, was that him coming in and being like, oh, Republic and Separatists, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Let me kind of see how strong they are. Like, I don't know what the idea would be for like why was he there with Anakin?
Yeah.
So
I
I'd
don't
love to
know
see
either.
that.
I
What was the
cannot wait
story?
to find out.
So I don't know if that's in this next one, but
No.
at some point,
Yeah.
I would like to get into that story a bit.
Yeah, and we do have a little bit of a time limit with Ahsoka coming out in August, but we don't need to necessarily. I don't know, but we'll do our best. But at the very least, we're going to have 2 books under our belt for that.
Sure. I imagine we'll at least do this first trilogy.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah,
excited
please.
for that, right? Just do the
Please.
first trilogy, and then we'll see where we're at after
Yeah.
that. So maybe you guys can help us decide. But we'll probably end up doing, and if you guys read a lot and want to get ahead, we'll do alliances, and I don't know what the next one is. There's a third one. I think one of them is called Ascendancy.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's in the first trilogy or the
I don't know.
second trilogy. So we'll get to those.
I enjoy my ignorance. I want to be able to discover it while I'm reading, so I don't want to look too much into
Sure.
it. Just that one cover, I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
yes.
So, guys,
We
we didn't get to
will-
any questions today. I don't know if you have anything else on this book specifically right now,
No.
but I will imagine that we will be talking more about Thrawn and how this book ties with the other book, to Rebels, to whatever else we have coming up on the next Badonkagonk. Dang it, that was the other thing I was going to do, is make sure what the date was. I didn't look at the date.
You look for the date. I'm excited to learn more about Thrawn's story, and on Badonkagonk, we will learn more about it, piece by piece.
All right.
Thrawn treason in the next one. Interesting.
Oh, is that what it's called? Dang it.
And here's another thing, too, because I did see someone in chat say, like, none of these books are going to matter for the show. While I think there might be an element of truth to that, that is not true for me. Like, I have this relationship with canon where I don't need everything to match up. I'm learning about a character, and I'm learning about that through the lenses of various artists and authors and directors and writers, to see their take on things. So even if things don't match up 100%, it doesn't matter to me. That doesn't stop me from appreciating the facets of characters through the lenses of various artists. And I think that's something that the greater Star Wars fandom needs to accept. I wouldn't say it needs to accept, but it's going to make your life a lot more fun if you do something like that. Try not to be too rigid.
Yes. This one's going to be tricky because I want to say it's the 22nd because we're not going to be here on the 29th.
Okay.
But it also says dark. So we might either need to move one of those or do it on the 15th.
Maybe.
So I'll just say the 22nd
I mean,
for now.
22nd for right
We'll
now?
say 22nd
Okay.
for right now.
Make sure you guys are following on our social media and various things right here on Wave Squadron. Whenever we have more of a confirmation, we'll get that to you. But what I'm not going to do is do what I did last time and start the book late because I am hungry.
Well,
for
sure,
more
yeah.
Thrawn.
My thought was like I wanted to. I'm torn between wanting to listen to this one again,
or
just going right into the next one.
Yeah, I get you.
Because they, I don't know. I want to make sure I have everything on this one.
Yeah.
To cross over to the next. But
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. But
All
no,
right.
I'm excited for that, guys. We'll aim for the 22nd right now, and if things change, we will let you guys know on the podcast dates.
Yep.
Otherwise, anything else?
I think that's it. It was we wish a happy anniversary to the Return of the Jedi and all the cast and crew that made that movie possible. Once again, our thoughts and feelings go out to the family and friends of Ray Stevenson, and we'll be seeing more of him later in August as well.
Yeah.
So